A classic rock vinyl record spins over the planet Earth, its song list a prelude to a story of space and time. In the dark void, a massive space station is rocked by a series of catastrophic explosions. As the wreckage burns, a desperate voice comes over the comms, asking if the transmission is recording. An astronaut identifies himself as Major Dong Young-soo of the Atalante, sending a final message he fears will never reach home. Floating alone before his destroyed ship, he begins his grim report on the Arcadia mission, humanity's last hope. The fiery destruction reflected in his helmet, he delivers the devastating news. The mission has failed. He remembers why they left a last-ditch effort for survival that meant abandoning Earth itself. A flashback shows the massive rockets of the planetary migration taking off, carrying the future of their species. Their destination was Kepler 3265b, a distant world that promised a new beginning. But an unidentified attack destroyed their ship, the Atalante, and he presumes the entire hibernating crew is dead. Drifting helplessly in the void, he accepts that there's nothing he can do to change their fate. With his blue-skinned hands clasped, he sends a final plea for Earth to remember the crew of the Atalante. He briefly wonders if anyone else could have survived before dismissing the thought as pointless, knowing his own end is near. Thud. Suddenly, something bumps against his gloved hand, startling him from his final thoughts. He looks down in disbelief to find his own guitar floating before him in the silent darkness. Clutching the instrument, he laments that he never got to finish his album before reaching Arcadia. Memories of his band and his music drift through his mind, a painful reminder of the life and dreams he lost. He grips the neck of his guitar, the last remnant of his earthly passion. As he floats before the inferno, he strums a silent chord and calls his tragic end a bit regrettable. Huh? A sudden beeping from his suit's chest panel snaps him out of his quiet despair. A hidden screen activates, its red text a beacon of hope. Escape pod ETA 032. An escape pod? He stares in disbelief, unable to process the impossible notification. Against all odds, an Atalante escape pod rockets through the debris field directly toward him. The pod's forceful arrival knocks him back, sending his guitar tumbling away into the void. Now inside, an automated voice instructs him to secure himself for immediate departure. A large lever labeled "Pull to Escape" is before him, his one-way ticket to the nearest source of gravity. Shaking off his melancholy, he grabs the lever with renewed determination, refusing to die so recklessly. With a powerful blast, the pod's thrusters ignite, launching him clear of the wreckage. The small craft hurtles through space, beginning a fiery descent into the atmosphere of the planet below. After a rough crash landing, the pod skids to a stop, across a strange alien terrain covered in red vegetation. As the hatch blows open, he groans, the unfamiliar gravity making his head spin. He gazes out upon a breathtaking field of red flowers, wondering if he's somehow died and gone to heaven. He quickly dismisses the thought. This isn't heaven. This must be their destination, Kepler 3265b. Resuming his log, crew member 67, Dong Young-soo, reports his emergency landing on planet Arcadia. As his suit registers the low oxygen levels, his scan of the red flower fields picks up something unexpected. It's a persona mysterious figure in a red hood, kneeling silently among the flowers. He immediately calls out, demanding the person's name and rank, assuming they are a fellow crew member, but the figure is gone, and in its place, a monstrous skeletal beast erupts from the ground. The creature's massive, razor-sharp claw hangs menacingly in the air. In a flash, the horrifying monster lunges toward him with terrifying speed. The attack sends him flying, knocking him hard onto the dusty ground. Stunned, he looks up at the beast's reflection in his visor and wonders what fresh hell this is. It's a massive arthropod, and his first instinct is to get away if he can. But as the creature attacks again, he realizes running isn't an option and pulls out his survival knife. He braces himself, gripping the small blade, his only weapon against the alien horror. He dives to the side, narrowly dodging a crushing blow from the monster's powerful limb. He slides across the ground as its massive, barbed tail whips just over his head. Ugh! The force of another near miss sends him tumbling, and he cries out as he hits the ground. The monster rears back, its bladed tail poised like a scorpion's, ready for the final strike. Pinned beneath the creature's leg, he realizes there's only one move left to make. A man in a spacesuit clings to a giant beast, thinking he's about to take a nasty fall. Thud! He lands hard, staring down at the creature's terrifying, wide-open maw. Clang! Thinking fast, he stabs a knife into the ground to halt his slide. He scrambles up the creature's head, remembering a key piece of advice: aim for the eyes. With grim determination, he readies his attack. He drives the blade straight into the beast's giant red eye, which erupts in a shower of purple blood. The creature thrashes wildly, but he holds on for dear life. Wham! The beast's massive leg slams down, crushing him against the ground. Trapped and helpless, the astronaut can only think one thing. Damn it! Suddenly, a targeting reticle locks onto the monster. Looks like he's got backup. A mysterious armored sniper in a red cape takes aim from a distance with a massive rifle. A powerful blast rips through the air, striking the beast directly in its armored head. The creature reels from the impact, its head pierced by the shot. The sniper grabs their rifle and sprints into the fray. The armored figure in red charges as the wounded beast is thrown into the air. The beast's massive claw swings down, aimed directly at the sniper's rifle. In an incredible display of strength, the sniper parries the massive claw with their weapon. Using the rifle as a lever, the sniper forces the creature's jaws wide open. They shove the weapon's barrel deep into the monster's throat. A devastating energy beam erupts from within, finishing the beast for good. The sniper leaps back as the monster is annihilated from the inside out. With a final thud, the massive creature collapses, defeated. The astronaut, finally safe, begins to thank his rescuer. He stands before the mysterious armored figure, who still holds their powerful weapon. The astronaut notes that, despite the intimidating armor, his rescuer's behavior seems surprisingly human. The armored figure speaks, but the language is completely alien. Deciding to take a chance, the astronaut prepares to reveal his face. He removes his helmet, showing his human face. Hoping the gesture conveys his peaceful intentions, the armored figure watches him intently, vapor puffing from their helmet. His rescuer plants their rifle in the ground, deciding to reciprocate the gesture. The mysterious figure reaches up and begins to remove their own helmet. She's revealed to be a blue-skinned woman with black hair, who seems flustered by the encounter. The man realizes that, in the eyes of this blue-skinned species, he's just as alien as the monster. The blue-skinned woman wonders why he was spared, questioning if it's because she resembles her own people. She offers him a canister, and he cautiously wonders if it's a drink or a trap. His mind races through a list of dangerous chemicals, weighing the risk. To clarify, the blue-skinned woman draws a diagram in the sand and simply says, water. She crouches beside her drawing, confirming her peaceful offering. The man accepts the water, noting the planet's atmosphere is just breathable enough to drink. He takes a sip, as a memory reminds him that English is the most likely language for first contact. A mission briefing recommended using, quote, educated dictionary English. Guess, yo, what's up is off the table. Having finished the water, the man gratefully returns the empty canister. He formally introduces himself in English, saying, nice to meet you. The blue-skinned woman looks at him with wide eyes, repeating an unfamiliar word, Langit. He extends his hand for a handshake, but she can only stumble through his words, trying to understand. The scene shifts as the wheels of a heavy vehicle crunch through a field of red flora. An armored transport vehicle makes its way across the alien landscape. It's hauling its prize, the massive carcass of the defeated beast. The vehicle drives off across the vast red sea of plants. Inside, the man and the blue-skinned woman ride together, as he learns her planet is called Bumi. The blue-skinned woman reflects that it wasn't long before she learned a new, surprising fact. Back at their transport, they begin processing the massive monster's carcass. The armored vehicle once again trudges through the endless sea of red flora. Inside, she drives in focused silence, while the astronaut rides along beside her. As they travel, he realizes their time on this strange world is running out. Their journey ends as they approach a massive, futuristic structure rising from the red plains. The transport enters a dark, cavernous hangar bay, leaving the alien landscape behind. The vehicle ascends a steep rail system, moving deeper into the facility. They finally arrive in a vast, dark chamber within the imposing structure. The transport navigates past colossal, strange, mushroom-like pillars growing inside. Having parked, the woman heads off to work while the astronaut waits on the vehicle. She walks along a raised metal platform, heading towards a communication station. She picks up a receiver and begins making a report in her native language. The astronaut watches from below as her voice echoes through the cavern. He listens intently, trying to make sense of the alien words. Sparks fly as a sharp tool carefully carves into the beast's tough hide. The blue-skinned woman, now in a work uniform, skillfully butchers the creature's remains. She pulls a thick black substance from within the monster's flesh. Thwack! She throws a slab of the creature's meat onto the cavern floor. Immediately, the giant mushroom stalks begin to writhe and reach for the offering. The astronaut observes that the planet's mushrooms act more like hungry animals than fungi. He watches them feed, wondering if her people cultivate these strange mushrooms for food. Deciding it's better to be an ally than a bystander, he resolves to help her. He approaches, carrying a large piece of the beast's hide to help with the work. She looks up from her work, surprised by his gesture. She offers her gratitude, finally calling him by his name, Dong Young-soo. Later, she returns to the communication device, identifying herself as Ingress. From the stairs below, Dong Young-soo attempts to repeat the phrase she spoke earlier, surprising her. He finishes his clumsy attempt to speak her language, introducing himself as Ingress. Close, but no cigar. He holds up a cute, animal-like stone carving, asking if she made it herself and calling it cute. Her wide-eyed shock makes him sweat, wondering if he just committed a major cultural faux pas. On second thought, he realizes her expression isn't anger, it's embarrassment. He figures a compliment is the universal language, but struggles to praise her work without words. His attempt at a thumbs up is met with a look of pure horror, prompting him to think, failure. He cycles through gestures, dismissing some as potentially offensive before landing on the heart symbol. He makes the heart sign with his hands, hoping this gesture of appreciation translates. Success! A blushing Ingress holds out the carving and gives it a name, Balaya. Dong Young-soo wonders if Balaya is the name of the cute little carving. Ingress smiles and gestures for him to follow her to a nearby workbench. She introduces him to her craft, showing him her tools and other carvings on a light table. A hologram of a massive, gentle-looking dinosaur appears, which she identifies as a Balaya. He now understands Balaya is the creature's name, privately thinking her carving is way cuter. She proudly shows him another carving and its holographic counterpart, a bird-like creature called Yerupa. She continues the lesson, introducing him to the Bangkong, the Rumpang, and the Kadal. Dong Young-soo notes her obvious love for animals, though he's already struggling to remember the names. He thinks about the peaceful creatures she showed him and how different they were from the monster he fought. Ingress returns the heart gesture, asking what he likes, which he interprets as her asking about his interests. An idea strikes him. He pulls out his device, hoping he has a photo to share. Langit, look at this, he says, using a name he heard her say as he shows her the screen. He proudly displays a picture of a cute cat, calling it his unit's Senior Tiger and declaring how awesome it is. His mission briefing flashes through his mind. When contacting aliens, always use educated English. The instructor's face looms in his memory, stressing one word, educated. Back in the present, Dong Young-soo admits to himself that he got a little too excited talking about his cat, Kong Deoki. Ingress, however, is completely starstruck, trying her best to repeat his very uneducated compliment. He quickly clarifies that it's just a cat, realizing he needs to watch his language around his new alien friend. It's clear to him now, the people of this world really, really love animals. He observes that getting excited over things you love is a truly universal trait, as Ingress fawns over another pet picture. This gets him thinking about the things he likes, and an image of a guitar comes to mind. Just as she turns to leave, he calls out to her, using the name he thinks is hers. Langit, wait. A small, rabbit-eared robot peeks out from the transport vehicle. He pulls his acoustic guitar from the vehicle, glad to see it survived the journey. Now, he thinks, it's time to show her what he likes. He strums a gentle chord, the sound echoing softly in the bay. Suddenly, the little robot zips forward, frantically calling out what sounds like an urgent warning. Its digital face is a mask of panic as it struggles to get the words out. The peaceful moment is shattered as the robot's alert interrupts his impromptu concert. Ingress turns in alarm, asking the robot, "Heiji, what's wrong?" The robot repeats its warning, and Dong Young-soo realizes it's trying to say something important. In a flash, he understands the message. A red-skinned man is shown in distress, and the robot's words mean Ingress is in danger. Heiji sounds the alarm one more time, its message clear. Without a second's hesitation, they're on the move. The three of them sprint towards a heavy red door at the end of the hangar. Ingress reaches the door first, but it's jammed. She wonders if it's broken. Dong Young-soo recalls her tense communication earlier and realizes their situation is far from relaxed. Ingress and Hee-ji brace themselves, preparing to force the door open together. She strains with all her might as he wonders if they're really going to try and brute force it. Realizing it's no use, she tells Hee-ji to stand back. Thud. Dong Young-soo decides to take a more direct approach, ramming the door with his shoulder. Wham! He smashes through the reinforced door like it's nothing. Inside, they find the red-skinned man collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath. Hee-ji's compartment opens, revealing 2 medical vials as Ingress rushes to the man's side. She quickly rips open his shirt, preparing to administer first aid. With practiced hands, she injects the contents of the blue vial directly into his chest. The effect is immediate, as the man's crimson skin slowly fades back to a healthy blue. He coughs, his breathing steadying, as Ingress checks to see if he's okay. With the crisis averted, they all take a moment to recover. The rescued man looks over at the astronaut, his mind registering the name, Dong Young-soo. Hee-ji the robot rolls over to him, its antenna-like ears twitching curiously. The two of them stand together, an unlikely pair in this alien facility. In a surprisingly human gesture, the robot mimics using a slingshot to communicate. It then points to itself and introduces itself as Hee-ji. Hee-ji extends an arm, formally introducing itself in perfect English. Nice to meet you, Dong Young-soo. The scene shifts to the vast red plains of the alien world, a world called Bumi. Dong Young-soo learns the name of their son, Penora, and commits the planet's name, Bumi, to memory. He begins to piece together their language, figuring out the words for correct, incorrect, the planet, and the sun. A sudden tremor rocks the facility, and from the other's panicked words, he understands the cause. A meteor just fell. The screen shows a devastating, mushroom cloud-like explosion in the distance. As Hee-ji flies into the air in alarm, Dong Young-soo sees the horrifying reflection in his own helmet. The little robot uses hand gestures to count something out, saying, Bara Lima. And then comes the devastating truth. In 5 years, another meteor will strike, and all life on Bumi will be extinguished. Stunned by the revelation, Dong Young-soo can only ask, what? He thinks about all the people on this doomed planet and wonders what his mission even is anymore. A memory surfaces. A voice announces that crew member 67 is in the final stage of the thawing procedure. In the memory, a pair of robotic arms carefully hands a man his acoustic guitar. The automated system demands he state his name, rank, position, and mission. It's a high-pressure identity check. Fail, and the body disassembly procedure will begin. Talk about a tough HR department. The robotic proctor offers to retrieve other possessions to aid his memory. The newly awakened man, his hair streaked with red, struggles with a terrifying question. Who was I? His fingers find their place on the fretboard as he recalls the building blocks of a song. F major, G minor, C7. Clutching his guitar, he remembers that the melody is the one thing that remained. He remembers his dream, to one day perform on stage for a crowd of 100,000 people. The memory solidifies. He responds to the system, identifying himself as Major Dong Young-soo, maintenance chief of the Atalante, tasked with ensuring the success of the Arcadia mission. The system confirms his identity as correct, then asks him for one final piece of information, his designated codename. His eyes narrow with determination as he spells it out, letter by letter. He says the name that defines him, Rockstar. Back in the present, the memory of his past self firms his resolve. He recalls his sworn duty to maintain the Atalante and protect its crew members. But a grim reality sets in. He's the only crew member left. He wonders what happened to his ship. The 2 blue-skinned people, Ingress and the man he helped save, look on as the planet's name is spoken. Bumi. Dong Young-soo's purpose is renewed. He declares that Bumi will not die, the mission hasn't failed yet, but the man delivers the hard truth again. Bumi will be destroyed in 5 years. The weight of their fate hangs heavy in the air as Dong Young-soo listens intently. Kneeling before Hee-ji, he explains that he needs to share his method for stopping the meteor. Surrounded by books, he realizes the monumental task of teaching them his language and science. He's got his work cut out for him. Hee-ji points to a notebook, having found and identified his name, Dong Young-soo. The astronaut looks up, confused by the robot's discovery. The little robot identifies the text as human writing, a crucial first step in bridging the communication gap. He begins the lesson with the absolute basics, starting with a flashcard. A is for apple. Looking a little bewildered, Dong Young-soo recites the first letter of his impromptu lesson. The lesson continues with B for bread and C for cat, a simple primer for an impossible task. Ingress and the other native of Bumi watch the strange lesson unfold, their expressions unreadable. With Hiji as his student, he teaches the concepts of eat and food. Using gestures, he demonstrates the meaning of the pronoun I. Next up, he mimes eating a sandwich to teach the verb eat. He then holds up the imaginary sandwich to illustrate the noun food. Hiji speaks, indicating that it finally understands the human's gestures. The notebook is revealed to be a basic English dictionary, complete with pictures and definitions. The robot struggles to pronounce the word dictionary as it processes the new data. Its robotic hands flip rapidly through the pages, absorbing the information at an incredible speed. The astronaut watches, stunned by the robot's learning capabilities. With its grammar lesson complete, Hiji closes the book. Thump! It then directly asks Dong Young-soo what he wants. Dong Young-soo states his purpose clearly. He knows how to destroy the meteor. Hiji, however, shuts him down, saying it can't be done. He insists, explaining he can't go back because his own spacecraft was destroyed. But he offers a sliver of hope. If they can find the wreckage, they can stop the impending doom. Hiji's rabbit-like ears twitch as it translates, informing him that the others are asking for his method. Time for a crash course in astrophysics. He grabs a green science manual. He opens the book, which is hilariously misspelled as chemistry. He turns to the most fundamental chart in all of science, the periodic table. With a tap, he presents the table of elements as the key to their survival. He lies on the floor, pointing to the elements as he recites them. Helium, lithium, beryllium. The lesson has begun. He continues his lesson, sounding out the elements on the chart. B, C. Dong Young-soo points to another element, stating the obvious. Hydrogen, 2. He explains that 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen make water, and Hiji confirms Boomians understand chemistry the same way. Hiji struggles to pronounce a new, unfamiliar word. It's just learned. Ton? The word is Appleton, an element humanity discovered with a complex atomic structure shown on the page. The text below the diagram reveals a shocking truth that Hiji processes. It's a form of dark matter. Dong Young-soo confirms it's a substance called Appleton that cannot be observed with light and only reacts to gravity. Hiji is stunned, questioning how humanity could have possibly identified dark matter when it's beyond the science of Bumi. Dong Young-soo tells the robot it doesn't matter if they understand it. What's important is that they can use it. The scene flashes back to a briefing where a man in a blue Adelante polo asks if any crew are familiar with Appleton particles. The other crew members, including one with striking orange eyes, look completely clueless. The instructor, acknowledging the topic is classified, decides to give them a quick rundown. He starts with the basics of atomic theory, explaining the nucleus and its surrounding electrons. A diagram of the complex Appleton atom is displayed for the crew. The man explains that Appleton is the only form of dark matter ever discovered, gesturing towards a massive structure. He unveils their project, the engine of the spaceship Atalante, which runs on this mysterious dark matter. He clarifies that what they're seeing is just a real-size model, not the actual engine, but it's sufficient for them to learn its structure. He then calls for the maintenance department. In the crowd, he singles out the maintenance section chief, a much younger Dong Young-soo. The instructor gives Young-soo his orders, telling him to start from the maintenance section and work his way up the steep structure. He gives a specific instruction: remember the symbol next to the entrance. Then he hands Dong Young-soo a manual, telling him to follow the steps inside in order. The instructor reveals the chilling purpose of the manual. It contains the ship's self-destruct sequence. A shocked Dong Young-soo asks the obvious question. Self-destruct? Why on earth? ? Quote. The instructor looks up with grim determination, about to explain the terrible reason. A man in a suit steps in, explaining that their destination, Arcadia, is a planet much like Earth. A diagram shows the parallel evolutionary paths of humans and the blue-skinned aliens of Bumi. The man in the suit lays out their dark contingency plan. If the new civilization is deemed a threat, their orders are to detonate the engine and cause irreparable damage. Back in the present, Dong Young-soo's face is grim as he admits the truth. This scorched earth protocol is one of his missions. Hee-ji puts it all together, realizing the engine is an antimatter bomb, and calls out to Ingress in alarm. The rescued blue-skinned man speaks to Dong Young-soo, calling him Dong Young-soo Motamara. Dong Young-soo quickly deciphers the language, recognizing Mot as death and realizing he's being asked about his intent to kill. With chilling certainty, he concludes the phrase must mean to kill. The blue-skinned man looks at him expectantly, asking for his choice. But Dong Young-soo refuses to be cornered by their question. He declares with absolute conviction that he is the one who makes the choice here. The two Boomians and their robot companion watch as the human makes his stand. He places a hand over his heart and makes his intentions clear. I want to find the engine with you. The blue-skinned man is suspicious, asking why he would reveal such dangerous information to them, the potential targets. Dong Young-soo answers honestly, because you need to know the truth to trust me. He clenches his gloved fist, determined to use the terrifying power humanity possesses. Not to destroy, but to save Boomy. He extends his hand, making a simple, powerful offer. If you trust me, take my hand. Ingress steps forward and firmly takes his hand, accepting the alliance. Her blue hand closes around his armored one, a symbol of their new pact. The man joins them, placing his hand over theirs, sealing their shared fate. With the life-or-death decision made, Hee-ji asks the real important question, what did that F word from earlier mean? It wasn't in the dictionary. Dong Young-soo looks away, trying to explain that it's just an exclamation for intense emotions. The little robot just stares, silently processing this very colorful addition to its vocabulary. With the plan set, Dong Young-soo stands before his new allies, gripping the robot Hee-ji, and declares, FCK it, let's try. His face is a mask of pure determination as he confirms his decision with a single word, yes. The scene flashes back to an Atalante mission briefing, where a woman explains their long journey. By the time they reach Arcadia, 3,000 years will have passed on Earth. A young crew member in a yellow hoodie listens with a bored expression as the speaker outlines the worst-case scenario for Earth. She warns that without their help, humanity could face a serious regression in knowledge and technology. As the crew member listens on, the speaker details their mission: establish a settlement on Arcadia, and, most importantly, maintain communication with Earth, as evidenced by his furiously doodled-on notes. She holds up the Deep Space Message Composition Manual, their guide for staying connected across the millennia. Back in the present, Dong Young-soo records his first report, identifying himself and stating it's been 10 days since arriving on planet Boomy. He continues his audio log from a makeshift room in Bunker 16, his trusty guitar resting beside him. First on the agenda, he's modifying his spacesuit for local exploration. He demonstrates how the bulky outer layer of the suit can be removed to improve mobility. With help from the blue-skinned man in the red jacket, they begin stripping down the suspended suit. Hee-ji, already studying a manual, confirms the battery and power components need work and asks if there's anything else, like the breathing equipment. Dong Young-soo looks concerned, wondering aloud if they'll need the breathing apparatus for exploring outside. Hee-ji has a solution: attach a respirator to a local helmet, which will also make it easier for him to use Boomy weapons. He agrees to the plan, turning to ask Ingress if the modification is possible. As they hoist him up to work on the suit, the blue-skinned man speaks for Ingress, and Hee-ji translates. She says it's possible. With that settled, Dong Young-soo figures they can strip out the now useless communication parts too. Hee-ji, ever the diligent student, pores over the AEMU operations manual and asks if the water tank is for temperature regulation. A sharp ringing fills his ears as he confirms, clutching his head and crying out in pain. The little robot astutely asks if the atmospheric pressure is different from where he's from. He confirms it's about twice as high here. He points out the orange oxygen tank on a piece of equipment to Ingress. As another wave of pain hits him, he hears the blue-skinned man speak and correctly deduces that the connected machine must be an oxygen filter. The plan is set. They'll dismantle the machine and build a temporary respirator for him. In his recording, Dong Young-soo explains the decision to use the temporary breathing gear until his body can adapt. He adds that the battery work is almost done, and all the modifications should be completed by the end of the day. Next on his log, physical training. He's shown lifting a heavy bar with improvised weights to combat muscle atrophy. While doing squats, he explains that his long time in space has severely weakened his muscles and bones. He moves on to diet, lamenting that so far, He's been eating nothing but mushrooms. It's bland, but Ingress warned him that trying other local flora could be dangerous. He'll stick to the safe option for now. He's had them every way imaginable: roasted, steamed, and boiled. You can't say they aren't creative with what they've got. The real issue is that the Boomians also survive solely on mushrooms, which means resources on this planet are dangerously scarce. He's worried about the long-term health consequences and knows he needs to find them all a more sustainable food source. But survival isn't just about food. He's also started combat training. Hiji explains that their biggest threat is a creature called Garita, which arrives on the planet via meteors. Ingress spars with a holographic projection of the monster. He recalls seeing the creatures on his first day, and now understands the grim reality. The Boomians are in a desperate war for survival. Hiji breaks down the enemy's anatomy, listing their vital organs, lungs, liver, kidneys, heart, as the primary targets. Dong Youngsu finds it fascinating that their biological structure is so similar to Earth's vertebrates. It's time for weapons training. Hiji introduces him to their most basic weapon, the Naga. The little robot explains that a Naga is essentially what humans would call a railgun. He hefts the surprisingly familiar weapon, figuring it won't be too hard to get the hang of. Ingress chimes in, explaining that the real challenge is when a Garita closes the distance, forcing them into close-quarters combat. For that, another robot named Langet will assist with training. Ingress prepares by putting on a breathing mask. A fellow Boomian demonstrates the problem. The Naga is great at a distance, but when the Garita gets in your face, you're in trouble. Hiji introduces the solution, the Tefra Naga, a railgun with a rotating chamber and a blade attachment. A gun blade. Classic. Ingress faces the hologram as the training simulation begins, explaining that the Garita attack by striking down with their front legs. The counter is simple. For an overhead attack from the front legs, block with an upper stance. Hiji adds a crucial tip: use the monster's own momentum against it. Their bones and carapace are tough, but they're still softer than metal. Dong Youngsu watches two training dummies execute the moves, quickly catching on. So for attacks from below, it's the lower stance, right? Ingress leads the training session, demonstrating the proper form and telling Dong Youngsu to follow her into an upper block. Dong Youngsu mirrors her stance with the heavy training weapon, asking if he's got it right. Suddenly, a mechanical arm slams into his weapon with a loud clang, sending sparks flying. The sheer force of the blow jolts him, and he stumbles back, wondering what that was all about. Hiji explains that the training robot is simulating the real impact of a battle, something the holograms couldn't convey. Catching his breath, Dong Youngsu smirks and asks if that means he can go all out too. Ingress confidently gives him the green light. Of course. With a powerful shout, Dong Youngsu lunges forward, bringing his weapon down with full force. Their weapons collide in a massive explosion of energy, a true test of strength between the human and the Boomian. In the heat of the clash, their eyes lock, both filled with fiery determination. Back in his log, a weary Dong Youngsu notes that Boomians use stimulants to get stronger in combat and concludes that he's busy preparing for their first big expedition. He consults the Deep Space Message Manual again, which suggests sending songs, his guitar resting beside him. Flipping through the manual, he finds a section on alien communication, citing the famous Voyager Golden Record as an example. He reads that the record contained a collection of Earth's culture, from classical music like Bach to world folk songs. He sighs, admitting he only really knows rock music, but decides to record a few songs he remembers the chords for. He begins to play, singing the iconic opening to a classic rock ballad. "Major Tom, do you hear me? This is Control Tower." Ingress appears, having listened to his performance, and remarks with a small smile, "You really did it." Continuing the song's theme, she asks what his clothes mean while he hums, struggling to remember the next line of lyrics. He trails off, realizing he can't remember the words and will just have to make something up. He stops playing as Ingress stands in the doorway, getting his attention. She gives him the good news. The modified spacesuit is finally ready. He replies, "Got it." He enters the workshop to see the finished suit hanging from a rig, ready for him. He steps into the suit as heavy chains lower the torso piece over him. With a pneumatic hiss, the armored gauntlet seals around his hand. The blue-skinned man in the red jacket finishes the job, welding a final component onto the suit. The armor clicks and locks into place, encasing him completely. He stands fully armored, helmet in hand, as the blue-skinned man tells him the modification was a huge success. The man hands him the helmet, saying the real test is if he can breathe once it's on. He lifts the custom helmet, preparing to seal himself in. He takes his first deep breath inside the helmet, testing the new life support. A second, steady breath confirms the system is working perfectly. Out on the field for the first time, he suddenly drops to his knees on the strange red terrain. Through his weapon scope, he spots their targets, two massive insect-like gorilla crawling across the landscape. He studies his aim, his suit's comms confirming multiple hostiles ahead. He gives the command to his team, announcing he's firing on the count of 3. Dressed in a new red cloak over his armor, he begins the countdown. 1. Apparently, patience isn't a virtue today, because he skips 2 and immediately yells, 3! Hiji, looking up at him with the rest of the crew, takes charge and says he will explain the mission parameters. The team gathers around a holographic map, where Hiji points out several locations of interest based on crash site data. The blue-skinned man in red points to their first objective, a radar base. He explains that the coastal base is their defense against meteor threats, and they need its tracking records to find what they're looking for. If that's a dead end, he says, there's another place to get more information. He highlights a second target on the map, a deep space satellite communications base located up in the mountains. He confirms their plan to hit the coastal base first, hoping it holds the key. Dong Young-soo and the blue-skinned man share a look of mutual understanding. The mission is a go. Dong Young-soo explains to Ingress that searching the debris of the fallen ship could yield valuable supplies. He lists off the possibilities, weapons, food, and even seeds to grow new crops. Ingress's eyes light up as she asks if they might have cat seeds, of all things. Dong Young-soo says maybe, while privately wishing for coffee. Hiji runs a final check, asking if the luggage is loaded and, more curiously, if they remembered to extract Dong Young-soo's blood. With a confident smirk, Dong Young-soo confirms he refrigerated the blood sample and loaded it himself, ready for whatever comes next. Hiji praises the move, noting that if Young-soo gets hurt, he's the only blood donor they've got. The team is introduced. The blue-skinned woman is Langit, the man in red is Ingress, and the human is Dong Young-soo. Out on the alien world, Dong Young-soo drops to a knee on the crimson landscape, preparing for battle. Through his scope, he zeroes in on 2 insectoid gorilla monsters near the wreckage. He takes aim and announces to the team that he's firing on the count of 3. From his perch atop their armored vehicle, he steadies his massive railgun for the shot. With a soft click, his targeting system locks on. He skips the countdown entirely, immediately yelling, 3! He pulls the trigger, unleashing a torrent of red energy from the railgun. The powerful blast streaks across the battlefield, heading straight for the unsuspecting creatures. The beam scores a direct hit, piercing the head of the first gorilla. The monster's head explodes in a shower of purple gore, a clean kill. Its companion lets out a piercing shriek of rage. He watches as the remaining gorilla and its smaller kin are now fully alerted to their presence. He hops off the vehicle, drawing his gunblade to deal with the incoming threat. The enraged gorilla thunder toward them, ready to avenge their fallen comrade. They close the distance in seconds, their massive legs shaking the ground. Before they can reach him, another figure in a red cloak opens fire, sending a laser beam into the fray. The second shot tears through the other large gorilla, wounding it badly. Though injured, the creatures continue their furious assault. One of the monsters lunges directly at Dong Young-soo, claws extended. Remembering his training, he raises his weapon to block, noting that overhead attacks are simple to counter. But as he prepares to block, he spots the other creature charging from the side. Suddenly, Langit appears, red marks glowing on her face as she exhales, clearly powered up by a stimulant. She raises her own blade, preparing to intercept the second monster. With an explosive burst of speed, she launches herself into the air. She blitzes past the charging gorilla, her blade a blur of motion. In a stunning display of power, she slices the creature clean in 2. The monster collapses in a heap, purple blood spraying everywhere. Langit comes to a stop, catching her breath after the incredible feat. Dong Young-soo lowers his weapon, a little stunned and clearly not happy. He turns to Langit, complaining that the kill was supposed to be his. She just gives him a cheeky look and blows a puff of air, totally unbothered. Ingress steps in, reminding Langit that they agreed to let Young-soo handle one for his close combat training. Langet looks away guiltily and apologizes. Ingress instructs Dong Young-soo to search the crashed ship, the Atalante, alone while they hang back. Dong Young-soo agrees and sets off on his own. He glances back, figuring Langet is probably getting an earful right about now. He walks through the crimson fields toward the massive, derelict shell of the Atalante. Inside the wreckage, he finds the storage area for equipment and personal belongings. He recalls that the ship's black box should be located somewhere near the airlock. Carefully, he navigates the twisted metal and scattered crates inside the destroyed ship. He spots his target high on a wall, the emergency voice recorder. With a powerful punch, he shatters the protective glass case. He pulls the bright yellow recording device from its housing. Finding a place to sit among the debris, he prepares to listen to the log. He flips the switch, and the recording begins to play. The first voice is his own, stating his primary protocol, the survival of the crew. Then, a panicked crewmate's voice cuts in, yelling that Section Chief Dong Young-soo can't survive the landing without certain equipment. He recognizes the voice as his crewmate, Dean, and realizes it's a recorded conversation with someone named Aleph. Holding a strange device, Young-soo wonders if his old comrade Dean was the one who helped him escape. In a flashback, Dean desperately pushes against a door, while a golden robot declares its protocol is clear. The robot's single red eye glows menacingly as it orders him to return to the escape pod. The final verdict is delivered from off-screen. The conversation is over. With a look of grim determination, Dean yanks a strap, making his move. Young-soo is thrown back into his seat as the escape pod violently launches. Back in the present, he puts the pieces together, wondering how Dean succeeded, and realizing it was all for the seed bank. Looking out at a massive cargo bay, he now understands that Dean's sacrifice even saved the guitar. Resolved, he gets up and decides to start by checking the containers that are already open. A blue-skinned woman in a similar uniform calls down from above, asking Young-soo if he needs help. She reassures him that she'll be right there and tells him to get ready to catch some items she's dropping. Thump! Supply crates land on the floor below, sending up a puff of dust. After she lands, she asks Young-soo if there are any usable items among the supplies. Young-soo walks past a case clearly labeled EM weapon, carrying another box he's recovered. He opens a small book, a wave of nostalgia hitting him as he realizes he's found items that bring back old memories. Looking over at the blue-skinned woman, he tells her to rest while he examines their findings. The scene changes to a beautiful, alien landscape, where they've set up camp in a field of red flowers next to a massive solar array. He reads from a journal, an entry detailing the first day at a training facility, and mentioning a man named Rock and his guitar. He lowers the journal, his gaze distant as he looks out at the striking red sunset. The journal triggers a flashback to a younger Young-soo in a pristine military uniform, giving a sharp salute. A senior officer in a heavy winter coat returns the salute, casually telling him, "At ease." No discernible visual content detected. The scene returns to the present, showing their vehicle parked in the field of red flowers by the massive structure. Young-soo continues reading the journal entry about his old squad mate, Rock, playing guitar for the trainees. The blue-skinned woman leans over his shoulder, asking what he's reading, as he explains it's the journal of his friend, Dean Daniels. She asks what it says, and he reads an entry about Dean being selected for the Arcadia mission. The journal recounts Dean's first meeting with Young-soo, where he awkwardly mistook his new section chief for someone of the same rank. Young-soo's face tightens as he reads the final line of the entry, where Dean calls him a, quote, rude bastard. He sits in silence for a moment, processing the less than flattering memory from his friend's journal. The blue-skinned woman finds the entry irritating and asks to look at the other items, and Young-soo cautiously agrees. The flashback resumes, showing a close-up of the younger, stoic Young-soo saluting. The gray-haired senior officer and a man in a suit order him to be at ease. The officer addresses him as Lieutenant Dong Young-soo, welcoming him to an office. The man in the suit introduces himself as Alex Chung from the Joint Space Exploration Headquarters. The senior officer then introduces himself as Personnel Staff Officer Connor Callahan of the Joint Headquarters. Young-soo formally introduces himself as a logistics officer for the 23rd Space Brigade. He stands at attention before the two men, who are seated behind a desk, ready for his interview. Young-soo states his official reason for enlisting: to protect the lives and property of citizens. Officer Callahan points a pen at him, pointedly asking if that's what he really wrote on his application. Young-soo, unflinching, confirms that he believes so. Callahan presses further, questioning his stated reason for joining the exploration mission, a, quote, yearning for a new world. Once again, Young-soo calmly confirms that the statement is correct. Callahan holds up his file, his expression suggesting he doesn't quite buy the textbook answers. He cuts to the chase, telling Young-soo that he'd appreciate some honesty for the interview. Alex Chung chimes in, explaining that the interview is also a psychological evaluation. Chung reassures him that they're aware of his contributions and encourages him to speak his mind freely. Young-soo takes a breath, his expression hardening slightly as he agrees to start over and tell them the truth. He finally admits his real reasons for enlisting were far more practical: college tuition and citizenship. However, he says his reason for joining the mission was genuine. He truly wanted to explore another world. He concludes by saying he thought his combat experience would be useful, as an officer diligently takes notes on his file. An intense debriefing begins as a silver-haired officer asks a pointed question about his family's death in a nuclear attack. Leaning in, the officer presses further, wanting to know exactly how that traumatic event made him feel. Dong Young-soo admits he was too overwhelmed with basic survival, like paying rent, to even process it. The officer accuses him of hanging out with delinquents to make money, underlining a point in his notes. Looking him dead in the eye, the officer reveals they've already interviewed everyone who knows him. Dong Young-soo clarifies that while he did sell electronics, he never resorted to violence or theft. He adds that he stopped completely once he began living with the Martinez family, putting that life behind him. The officer seems to accept this, glancing at a file for Maria Martinez, a deceased former collaborator of Young-soo's. Changing tactics, the officer brings up his deployment in Kazakhstan, asking about his time in combat with Alex Chung. A man in a brown suit chimes in, enthusiastically praising Lieutenant Dong Young-soo for his admirable performance during a surprise attack. The silver-haired officer ignores the praise and demands Dong Young-soo tell them about his combat experience firsthand. He begins to recount the mission, recovering a fallen meteorite from the vast Kazakh desert. He explains the $60 million meteorite fragment was targeted by an armed group, forcing him to act as a decoy in a transport truck. The officer remarks that he's already heard the story from Alex Chung, who apparently told it with a lot more flair. With a stern expression, he closes the file, the interview seemingly reaching its climax. Dong Young-soo explains that facing huge challenges gives him courage, but he has a question of his own. The officer cuts him off, asking if this new challenge is just another attempt to escape his trauma. He relentlessly pushes, suggesting Young-soo is just running away because his friends are dead and Earth is doomed. Dong Young-soo calmly admits that there have been many moments in his life when he wanted to give up. The two men listen intently as he states that, in those moments, one can only break down or endure. He concludes with grim certainty that those are the only two choices a person ever has. A document is slid across the table, confirming his new assignment to the 1st Space Maintenance Division as a major. As he reads the file, he learns that all information from this mission will be classified as top secret. Stunned, he looks up from the papers and asks the million-dollar question, "Have I passed?" The officer pinches the bridge of his nose, explaining that sometimes invasive questions are necessary to find a person's hidden strengths. The other man presents a new, top-secret file for Project Arcadia, revealing a schematic of a massive, wheel-shaped space station. The project is officially named the Arcadia Mission, a mission to explore an alien planet. Told to review the details, Dong Young-soo begins reading the new mission briefing. The officer officially assigns him his new position, Maintenance Section Chief 1. His eyes widen as he's informed that upon arrival, he'll be promoted one full rank to major. But there's a catch. Until he's on that spacecraft, he's still just a candidate who needs to focus on his training. Dong Young-soo is surprised by the decision, admitting he expected them to choose someone with actual astronaut experience. The man in the suit clarifies their true goal. They needed an agent with proven survival skills, not just a pilot. With the interview over, the officers, now in their coats, instruct him to follow a guide to the transport. They wish him success on his mission as he prepares to depart with his new life, packed in a single briefcase. As he's being escorted out, an officer asks him if he has any vices, like drinking or smoking. Young-soo replies that he quit drinking, but still enjoys a smoke after a hard day of training. The officer smiles faintly, suggesting they have just enough time for one last cigarette before he leaves. Dong Young-soo gives a crisp salute as he's led away by his new handlers. A voice calls out his name, Lieutenant Dong Young-soo, and he stops, his expression unreadable. Two heavily armed soldiers in yellow parkas step forward, announcing they are his guides. He falls in step with the soldier, their boots crunching as they head toward his destination. They walk across a snowy tarmac toward a waiting aircraft, the mission finally feeling real. The soldier walking beside him turns, ready to offer him that promised cigarette. He pulls out a pack of smokes, a simple gesture before a life-altering journey. Dong Young-soo initially holds up a hand, politely refusing the offer. The soldier insists, revealing he has a message to deliver from the personnel staff officer. He looks at Young-soo with chilling intensity and says, "This will be your last cigarette in life." Staring at the cancer warning on the pack, Dong Young-soo seems to have a change of heart. Looks like some warnings you just can't ignore. Click! A lighter sparks to life, its flame cutting through the cold air, ready to light what might truly be his last smoke. Dong Young-soo looks up at the falling snow, a quiet moment before his journey begins. Escorted by two security guards, he walks across the snowy tarmac toward a waiting private jet. The stairs to the aircraft are down, an open invitation to his new life. Thud. He steps aboard the plane, ready for whatever comes next. Inside the luxurious cabin, a lone guitar case with a lightning bolt sticker leans against a seat. As he enters, a voice welcomes him. "Ah, the musician has arrived." Dong Young-soo looks confused, asking aloud, "What musician?" An officer with kind eyes introduces himself as Dean Daniels, deputy chief, and suggests they help each other out as fellow lieutenants. Taking off his hat, Young-soo realizes this friendly face is actually his new subordinate. As the plane soars away from a restricted military base, he internally wonders how he should respond to the greeting. Inside a briefing room, Dean stands among other officers, including a blonde woman awaiting their new chief. A sudden spark of recognition hits Dean. Dong Young-soo formally introduces himself to the room as Maintenance Section Chief 1. A quick glance at his uniform reveals his new rank, Major. Dean snaps to attention, offering his new boss a sharp, welcoming salute. A series of promotional banners appear, showing recruitment notices for a fan translation group. A disclaimer page follows, along with logos for various websites. The scene shifts to a desolate, snowy field, with only a few blades of grass poking through. A giraffe's muzzle gently lowers to nibble on the sparse grass. The full view reveals a haunting scene, the giraffe in a ruined city, standing over the body of a fallen person. It raises its head, chewing peacefully amidst the destruction as smoke trails from missile launches fill the sky. The giraffe's calm expression is a stark contrast to the apocalyptic world around it. The view pans over a massive, snow-covered launch complex, lined with rockets poised for liftoff. Back in the present, Dong Young-soo walks purposefully down a corridor, carrying a box of his effects. Dean salutes his new section chief once again. Dong Young-soo takes his place at the head of the room, officially beginning his duties. Standing at the podium, he instructs the assembled candidates to take their seats. He then asks everyone to raise their right hand for a roll call. He lays out the procedure. Count off from the right, lowering your hand as you speak. The recruits begin counting off one by one, their voices echoing in the room. Young-soo takes a moment to introduce Dean Daniels as his deputy section chief. Dean finally puts it together, realizing Young-soo was the man on the plane. Young-soo confirms it and promptly tasks him with distributing the mission briefings. "Sure," Dean says, beginning to hand out the blue folders to the other recruits. The final candidate shouts, "5! End of numbers!" Completing the roll call, Young-soo reports a total of 32 people in their section and thanks Dean for his help. He officially begins the briefing for the Alien Planet Exploration Plan, also known as the Arcadia mission. The training will last at least a year, and failure or quitting means immediate dismissal. He warns them that this is a top-secret joint operation, and the documents they hold are classified. To drive the point home, he adds that if any information is leaked, the CIA will get involved. He starts with the grim reason for the mission, Earth's collapse due to a climate crisis. Shifting to logistics, he announces a mandatory physical examination for the following morning. He specifies that they'll need to fast after 9 p.m. for an endoscopy. With the initial details covered, he states that the main training will kick off the day after tomorrow. The training begins, with Dean now leading a session on the first module, physical conditioning. He reviews the essential resistance training exercises, deadlift, bench press, overhead press, and squat. Later in the gym, Young-soo spots Dean during a squat session, pushing him to do one more representative. Dean finishes his set, and Young-soo tells him it's time to hit the books for theory class. Exhausted and sweating, Dean thinks to himself that he still has one set left. Young-soo calls him out instantly, asking, "Didn't we just finish 10 sets? Looks like there's no slacking on his watch." A man in a yellow hoodie glances back, telling his section chief he still has one set left. In a flashback, a younger officer Young-soo briefs his new recruits, encouraging them as he introduces their next lesson, the Atalante. A blonde instructor stands before a chalkboard, announcing that theory classes will be conducted first. One of the trainees, a younger Young-soo, looks completely bored while taking a test. As the instructor explains there's a test after every class, his friend Dean seems to be concentrating intently on the test. Sweating, Dean struggles with an answer. Tapping his paper nervously, Young-soo glances over, squinting as he asks what number Dean is even trying to write. The briefing continues, with Young-soo explaining that practical training will follow the theory classes. Another instructor clarifies that this training will take place on a full-scale model of the Atalante. Young-soo elaborates on the mission assignments, explaining they'll be given scientific experiments based on when they wake from hibernation. Rows of uniformed trainees sit and listen, holding their briefing materials. Their first practical training is terraforming, where they practice growing potatoes and beans under the watchful eye of a robot. Dean excitedly holds up a huge haul of potatoes, exclaiming that it's a bumper crop for his section chief. Young-soo, however, finds the work tedious, complaining about how tiring it is to keep digging. He wonders why coffee isn't part of the curriculum, and a fellow trainee asks if he's planning to open a Starbucks on an alien planet. Back in the lecture hall, Young-soo introduces the next topic, the specialized spacesuits for their mission. He explains the suit's standard functions for temperature and radiation shielding, as engineers are shown working on one. But the real upgrade is the built-in exoskeleton system, designed for use on the planet's surface. He simplifies the concept for the recruits, telling them to think of it as a power suit straight out of sci-fi. They'll use these suits for combat and emergency training, preparing to face hypothetical alien life forms. During the training exercise, Young-soo turns to Dean with an idea forming. He muses aloud, wondering if they could just skip this whole training session if they had a 60mm mortar. Dean actually considers it, asking if they're even allowed to load explosives on the spacecraft. A gray-haired evaluator overhears and asks for the name of the trainee, who mentioned mortars, forcing Young-soo to identify himself. The evaluator promptly deducts points from Young-soo's alien planet adaptation score. Ouch! Adding insult to injury, the evaluator remarks that Laika, the space dog, would have a better understanding of space travel. A confused Young-soo asks, "Laika?" As an image of the famous Soviet dog appears, Young-soo grimaces in embarrassment while Dean looks on. Dean turns to his section chief, genuinely worried about his score after that blunder. He suggests they study more after training, earning a miserable ugh from Young-soo. The briefing moves on to its final topic, hibernation training. He informs the trainees that it's a dangerous procedure requiring a separate consent form. After explaining that the training cycle repeats, he snaps his fingers with a sharp sound. He then introduces a golden robot that will be following them to collect information. The robot, with its single glowing red eye, is identified as Aleph version 1. Young-soo explains that Aleph is the ship's artificial intelligence and will assist them throughout their training. He concludes the announcements and tells everyone to line up to receive their smartphones. The first trainee steps up, identifying himself as Ryan Curtis. Dean offers to help his section chief by checking the names off the list. The next recruit steps forward, announcing his name is Chase Bennington. Chase Bennington specifies that he's from the Navy, and Young-soo and Dean listen as they hand him his device. A blonde woman named Jocelyn Yates introduces herself, then immediately asks where the cafeteria is. The robot Aleph offers to guide her, which Young-soo approves. Tap, tap. She agrees and walks off with her new robot guide. As things wind down, Dean apologizes to Young-soo for not recognizing him when they were on the plane. Young-soo smiles, telling him it's fine and not to worry about it. Dean extends his hand, sincerely promising to support Young-soo until the very end of their mission. The scene flashes to the golden robot, Aleph, reading Dean's journal about his first day at the training facility. Back in the present, Young-soo sits in his spacesuit under a starry alien sky, reflecting that Dean truly did keep his promise. The blue-skinned woman Lang-yeet approaches him, asking why he's sleeping out here. A blue-skinned man in a red jacket tells an exhausted woman in a matching suit to get some rest inside their vehicle. The blue-skinned woman looks down and meekly agrees, while the man watches over her with a tired expression. Another crew member in a full helmeted suit asks Dong Young-soo if anything seems strange, but he simply replies that it's quiet. The blue-skinned man tells his crewmate that he's going to sleep now, and the other agrees to rest as well. As the person in the white suit watches, the blue-skinned woman from inside the vehicle wishes Dong Young-soo a good night's sleep. In a flashback, a smiling Dean Daniels tells someone that he's only alive thanks to their help, bidding a fond farewell to his rock star. The memory fades, leaving Dong Young-soo sitting alone in his new uniform, quietly mourning his fallen friend. Rest in peace, Dean. The scene abruptly shifts to a promotional image featuring a man's determined face and a smaller character singing into a microphone. A new day begins on a strange world, with a small creature and a drone perched on the edge of a massive structure overlooking a red forest. A cute, rabbit-eared robot tries to make contact, asking if anyone can hear its transmission. Floating beneath a hot air balloon, the robot sends out a morning wake-up call to the crew. A blue-skinned woman named Langit answers, confirming she's awake after being on night watch. The robot asks about the others, and Langit replies that she'll go check on them now. Just then, an unseen voice says, "I'm awake," prompting the robot to ask who's speaking. A blue-skinned man named Ingress stands inside the vehicle, holding a helmet and looking over at Young-soo, who is still sleeping. Suddenly, a robotic voice screams, "Wake up, Dong Young-soo!" startling him awake. Ingress clutches his chest, completely startled by the sudden shout. Now that everyone is up, the rabbit-eared robot announces it's time for their morning quiz. The robot calls on Langit first, asking her to translate a complex phrase, which she does perfectly. Langit giggles to herself, pleased with her correct answer. Next up is Ingress, who fumbles his translation but gets a good job for effort from the surprisingly forgiving robot. The robot announces that it's finally Dong Young-soo's turn to be tested. He's given an impossibly technical sentence about neurotransmitters to translate, leaving him utterly baffled. Young-soo sits up, wondering if he's still dreaming, as the robot insists he has to try. The robot explains that understanding humans is important, and this kind of knowledge is a conversation starter. Guess it's not a fan of small talk. Young-soo closes his eyes, struggling to piece together the complicated medical jargon. After a moment of thought, he throws in the towel. The robot then gives him a much simpler phrase to translate instead. The robot congratulates him on the translation, then cheekily reveals it means, "I am a fool." Watching the exchange, Ingress asks with a sigh if he can finally get a bit more sleep. The crew's red and white communication balloon drifts peacefully in the sky. Later, Langit and Young-soo enjoy a snack in a field of vibrant red flowers while tending to their equipment. Young-soo asks Ingress when they'll reach their destination as he examines a piece of rations. He continues to stare at the rock-like food while Langit works behind him. Still thinking about the morning's quiz, Young-soo declares, "I am a fool," causing Langit to burst into laughter. Ingress finally answers, telling him they should arrive around sunset. Young-soo absent-mindedly repeats his new catchphrase, "I am a fool." Ingress watches him with concern, but Langit is too busy crying with laughter to care. Thump! The rope securing their equipment strains against its anchor in the ground. Young-soo gets to his feet, saying they can leave as soon as the communication balloon is packed. Suddenly, Ingress's expression shifts to one of serious concern. The armored vehicle rumbles through the alien landscape, kicking up red leaves. Inside, Langit sits quietly while another crewmate in a white and yellow suit inspects their gear. The crew member checks the action on a futuristic-looking rifle. From the driver's seat, Ingress asks for a status report on the weapons. The crewmate replies that they look fine but will need batteries to confirm they work. Ingress follows up, asking what kind of weapons they are. The crewmate identifies them as rapid-fire railguns and plasma cutters powerful enough to slice through metal. Ingress seems pleased, noting that a large plasma cutter would be extremely useful. He chuckles to himself, while a small white robot peeks over his shoulder. The crewmate in the suit remembers being told to pack hobby items, reflecting that they chose to bring a guitar. Rummaging through their gear, the crewmate in the suit discovers someone packed comic books for the trip. He asks Langit if she's the one who found the comics, and she confirms they were an interesting read. He questions why she was up reading at dawn, and she admits she couldn't understand the strange language inside. He flips through the pages, revealing a classic manga about a tough schoolgirl with a baseball bat. He explains the writing is Japanese, a concept that seems completely foreign to the blue-skinned woman. He reminds her that while her home planet has one language, Earth has countless regional ones. The comic panels depict a simpler life, with schoolgirls happily enjoying delicious-looking street food. The scene triggers a question from Langet, who has never heard of such a place. What's a school? She explains her entire education came from Ingress and Hiji, since she's lived in a bunker her whole life. Looking wistful, Langet confesses that reading the book has sparked a desire to experience school for herself. The crewmate listens quietly, taking in her sheltered upbringing. He thinks to himself how sad it is that she never got to play with friends as a child. This leads him to wonder what kind of student she would have been if she'd had the chance. His first thought is a studious, glasses-wearing Langet, too buried in calculus to waste time on boys. His second thought is a punk rock delinquent Langet, demanding someone dig for mushrooms to make some cash. Even her socks scream rebellion, with "High School I'm Served" printed on them. Nice try, Google Translate. He decides both of his imagined versions are a little weird, leaving Langet confused by his silence. She leans in and asks him directly, "Young-soo, did you go to school? Was it fun?" Young-soo's expression darkens as he slowly confirms that yes, he went to school. A sudden violent flashback shows a masked young man screaming in pure rage. The memory cuts to a desperate attempt to staunch a bleeding wound with a makeshift bandage. In the chaos, a young man performs first aid on a fallen security guard as a gun lies nearby. The older guard grits his teeth, sweating profusely from the agonizing pain. A horrified onlooker, a younger Young-soo, covers his own bleeding lip in shock. The vision shifts to a girl in cat ear headphones, her face illuminated by raging fires. The flashback ends on a somber note. Two figures holding hands in a rainy cemetery. A close-up reveals their clasped hands, a silent promise of support in their grief. The young man's face is a mask of sorrow as the rain pours down around him. Back in the present, Young-soo finishes his sentence with a heavy heart, admitting school was good. He quickly adds that it wasn't exactly a fun place, an understatement given his memories. Langet seems to sense his mood, watching him with quiet curiosity. Trying to change the subject, Young-soo flips open the comic and points to a character that reminds him of her. He says her name is Amane, meaning sound of heaven, as the comic shows her happily cuddling a cat. Langet's face lights up with joy, realizing their names share a similar beautiful meaning. She says that seeing Amane's love for cats reminded her of something special. Ta-da! She proudly presents a small, handcrafted figurine that looks like a cat. Young-soo takes the small gift, a genuine smile finally appearing as he calls it cute. As their vehicle travels on, Langet's happy little doodle exclaims, "It's a cat." Vroom. They speed through the red landscape toward a massive structure on the horizon. The crew gathers at the front of the vehicle as Ingress announces their arrival. Before them stands an immense futuristic complex, connected to the shore by a ruined, familiar-looking red bridge. Young-soo looks on, a sense of unease creeping in as he starts to voice a concern. The bridge is clearly destroyed, with a massive gap preventing any crossing. Ingress once again confirms they've reached their destination. He explains the island is a low-altitude air defense base. Young-soo hesitates again, still focused on their obvious problem. Finally, he asks the million-dollar question, "The bridge is broken?" Ingress reassures him, explaining the path is just submerged under the high tide, prompting Young-soo to ask if the water level changes. He confirms that the path will reappear when the tide goes out around dawn. Clank. Having found a way in, Ingress and another crewmate begin moving their supplies into the base. As they survey the new area, Young-soo turns to the blue-skinned man and asks for his theory on why the bridge was destroyed. The man calmly looks ahead, speculating that the damage was most likely caused by the meteor impact. He opens a nearby control panel, and a holographic energy core inside sparks to life. Fortunately, emergency power is still running, he reports, giving them a small glimmer of hope. Young-soo asks if that means the radar was working, but the man clarifies it just means the reconnaissance satellite records should be stored there. "I hope we get some useful information," Young-soo muses, as they walk toward the massive, imposing structure. The scene pans out, revealing a sprawling facility by the water, surrounded by an endless field of red alien plants. The blue-skinned man allows himself a slight, confident smile as he takes in the view. Suddenly, Langet speaks into her comms, "Hiji, Can you hear me? We've arrived at our destination. High above in a hot air balloon, a lookout named Hiji responds, asking for the situation at the radar base, as Langet reports the entrance checkpoint is in ruins. Hiji confirms the facility appears abandoned, and Langet suggests that if they cross to the nearby island at dawn, they might find some traces. She stands alone in the vast red field, watching as their armored vehicle kicks up dust in the distance. As the blue-skinned man climbs atop the vehicle, she asks about the power. He confirms it's fine and agrees with the plan to search at dawn. He then asks Langet if she sensed any traces of a Gurita, but she reports detecting nothing from the power plant side. He looks out pensively, stating that he can definitely feel a weak presence around this specific area. As the three of them stand by their vehicle, he theorizes that the cloudy weather might be weakening the pheromone traces he's sensing. A heavy boot steps onto the alien soil just as the first drops of rain begin to fall. Noticing the downpour starting, Young-soo looks to the others and tells them it's time to get inside. A sudden torrent of rain lashes against the facility and the dangerously broken bridge connecting it to the mainland. The water churns violently around the base of the damaged structure under the dark, stormy sky. From a high window inside the building, Young-soo peers out into the relentless storm. Safely inside, the blue-skinned man briefs them with a map, pointing out their current location at the broken bridge. He traces a route on the map, explaining that when the tide recedes at dawn, they can cross to the island. Young-soo turns to him, finally asking what he meant earlier about a Gurita being in the area. The man explains that he sensed Gurita pheromones, but because the scent is so faint, he believes they're old. With his arms crossed, Young-soo presses, asking if there could be Gurita on the island. The man admits he can't be certain. The grim possibility dawns on Young-soo. They might have to fight their way through the island. A moment later, Young-soo returns with a box, announcing to the others that he's found some food. The blue-skinned man recognizes them as old combat rations, a wave of nostalgia hitting him. Langet then asks if he found anything unusual in the warehouse. She reports that the warehouse was a total mess, and more alarmingly, she could also sense the Gurita pheromones in there. Young-soo questions how the large creatures could have entered the warehouse, and the man grimly suggests it might have been a smaller variant. The blue-skinned man's expression is troubled, as he considers the dangerous implications. Young-soo tries to bite directly into a hard ration bar, complaining that it's impossible to eat. The man dryly advises him to break it up in warm water. A fire crackles to life in a modern fireplace, providing some much-needed warmth and light. The team gathers around the fire to eat their meager meal, and the blue-skinned man asks if the food is even edible. Langet takes a bite and seems delighted, exclaiming that anything tastes good after a steady diet of mushrooms. Young-soo cleverly combines his ration with some mushroom crackers, discovering it actually makes them palatable. The blue-skinned man tells them to eat up and get some rest, reminding them they have an early start before sunrise. Outside, the storm continues to rage under the dark, star-filled sky. Elsewhere, Hiji, now in her own combat suit, confirms her weapon systems are charged and loaded. A soldier in another suit confirms their Shiranaga is also charged and ready for action. The blue-skinned man, now wearing a helmet inside the vehicle, gives the order for everyone to get in the car. Vroom! With a lurch, the armored vehicle powers forward into the pouring rain. They drive through the red foliage, heading directly for the dilapidated bridge in the downpour. The vehicle's powerful headlights cut through the gloom as it navigates the rough terrain. A nervous voice pipes up, expressing worry about passing under the decrepit bridge and hoping it doesn't collapse on them. Young-soo asks if he can sense any Gurita pheromones, but the driver replies that the heavy rain would have washed any traces away. Suddenly, Hiji's voice crackles over the comms with a sharp warning. Obstacle detected ahead! The vehicle's lights reveal a massive pile of rubble blocking their path, and someone questions if they can detour through the mudflats. Taking command, the blue-skinned man declares they'll have to clear the debris themselves and orders Langet to take charge of the upper turret. On a dark and stormy night, Young-soo and Ingress walk down a desolate road, ready for what lies ahead. With a mighty crash, a shovel smashes into the rubble, blocking their path. The two work in tandem, Ingress shoveling debris while Young-soo breaks it apart with a sledgehammer. Young-soo questions the convenient roadblock, wondering why debris from the bridge would be piled up in this one specific spot. Ingress puts a hand on his shoulder, telling Young-soo to look ahead for a moment. A flash of lightning reveals a lone figure standing atop the rubble before a massive, dark structure. Suddenly, a warning blares about enemies to the rear, prompting Ingress to ask Langet for a sit representative. Langet reports from the vehicle's turret. Dozens of small, variant creatures called Gurita are on their tail. Pew! She opens fire with a red laser, blasting at the fast-approaching alien swarm. Taking charge, Young-Soo tells Ingress he'll clear the path and yells for covering fire. A fallen creature lies motionless, as Young-Soo continues his frantic work on the roadblock. Overwhelmed by the chaos, Young-Soo mutters that the stress is driving him crazy. The armored Gurita creatures swarm forward through the pouring rain, their red eyes glowing with menace. One of the monsters lunges forward with terrifying speed. It leaps through the air, claws extended, bearing down on an unsuspecting Young-Soo. Langet's precision shot intercepts the monster mid-air, blasting it away just in time. Seeing the danger, Ingress screams from the vehicle for Young-Soo to get back immediately. Young-Soo makes a mad dash for safety as the creatures close in behind him. He sprints for his life, with a massive Gurita hot on his heels. The vehicle's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the charging horde as Young-Soo clings to the side. Now safely aboard, he reports that more enemies are approaching from the front. A fresh wave of Gurita race toward them down the slick road. Leaping into action, Young-Soo uses his plasma cutter to slice through a creature, sending purple goo flying. He notices a strange glint on his weapon and wonders what it is. The source is revealed. A strange, cross-shaped light is blinking from the distant bridge. The mysterious signal continues to pulse from the dark, imposing structure. A strange message comes through his comms, a repeating series of dits and dahs. Young-Soo quickly tells Langet to change the radio frequency to 70 MHz. Ingress orders him to open his helmet side ear cover to hear better. Ingress gently helps Young-Soo adjust his helmet, trying to tune in the mysterious signal. A hand turns a dial, but the only sound is harsh static. As the static crackles, Young-Soo and Langet listen intently for any clear words. A broken message finally cuts through. Personnel. Atalante. A robotic voice announces it's retransmitting due to poor sound quality. I can hear you, Young-Soo shouts back, desperate to make contact. The mysterious signal's owner appears, a masked figure with glowing red eyes, asking if they're from the Atalante. The figure, a woman in a yellow jacket holding a rifle, demands they state their affiliation, rank, name, and code name. From her high vantage point, she repeats the order for identification. Young-Soo immediately responds, identifying himself as Major Dong Young-Soo of Maintenance Section 1, codename Rockstar. The woman confirms his identity is recognized and asks crew member 67 for instructions. After confirming his command authority, she asks if the creatures following them should be designated as enemies. Without hesitation, Young-Soo gives the order, affirmative. Target locked, she replies coolly, taking aim down her rifle's sight. Vents on her rifle glow as she announces the heatsink is opening, preparing a powerful shot. She fires a single precise shot from her perch on the bridge. Her shot vaporizes one of the creatures, proving their new ally has some serious firepower. Nice shot, Young-Soo compliments her, then radios to Aleph that they are heading for the fortress entrance. He points to a dark tunnel, asking if she knows the location he's referring to. As another creature attacks, he urgently asks if she can supply them with weapon batteries at that location. He screams the specific types he needs, 2 Odette and 1 Aurora, while smashing a monster's head in. Aleph calmly confirms she can deliver the batteries to the entrance passage. Affirmative. Then move right now, Young-Soo yells, the urgency clear in his voice. Ingress, the crewmate in the red coat, asks Young-Soo if their new contact is an ally, and Young-Soo explains it's Aleph, the AI from the Atalante. He adds that she'll meet them at the fortress entrance as their vehicle plows through the storm. Aleph radios in, confirming she's in position and requesting intel on the enemy's characteristics to prepare for combat. Young-Soo points to the creatures, explaining they come in small and large varieties, which Aleph confirms she's noted. Without another word, Young-Soo leaps from the vehicle to join the fray. He brings his plasma cutter down hard on a monster's pincer. Overwhelmed by the endless fight, he mutters that the stress is driving him crazy. He twists his body, narrowly dodging a strike from another charging creature. Thrown off balance, he stumbles backward onto the vehicle as Ingress calls out his name. Ingress catches him just in time, saving him from a monster's deadly attack. As the creatures swarm them, Young-Soo shouts into his comms, letting Aleph know they're about to enter the fortress. From inside a dark passage, a rifle fires, providing covering fire for the approaching vehicle. Aleph glowing red eyes narrow as she announces she will issue weapons directly to crew member Dong Young-soo. Standing guard, she blasts another monster while telling Young-soo to come register his biometrics for the weapon transfer. Young-soo formulates a quick plan, telling the others that Langet and Aleph will hold them off while they grab the weapons and retreat. He rushes into the dark tunnel, moving to rendezvous with their new AI ally. Aleph, all business, recites the weapon model and serial number, demanding confirmation. Annoyed, Young-soo just shouts the number back. She stands firm, stating that protocol is more important than anything, even in this chaos. As more monsters charge into the tunnel, she begins to quote Arcadia Mission Protocol O. All hostile entities will be, she continues, her voice cold and unwavering, terminated. She leaps into the air, weapon poised to strike down on the creatures below. A close-up shows her glowing red eyes, filled with deadly focus. She lands with deadly grace, ready to face the encroaching horde. Standing atop a vanquished foe, Aleph tells Young-soo to retreat while she handles the rest. Young-soo tells her not to get bogged down trying to wipe them all out and to follow as soon as she can. She agrees. Waving from a cylindrical doorway, Young-soo shouts to the others that he's back, and Aleph is right behind him. Langet asks if he's talking about the robot, and he confirms it's the administrator AI of the Atalante. Back in the tunnel, Aleph stands victorious over a pile of slain monsters, the Atalante crew logo visible on her jacket. She turns to face a fresh wave of creatures emerging from the darkness. A massive gorilla screeches as it lunges directly at her. With a flash of light, she swings her weapon in a deadly arc. Watching from the safe zone, Young-soo grits his teeth and mutters, "It's coming." As Langet works on a control panel, Young-soo calls out, asking if Aleph has arrived yet. A heavy blast door begins to slide shut, the battle outside visible through the closing gap. Aleph appears in the doorway just before it closes, reporting that she's weakened the enemy's assault. She wipes purple alien blood from her masked face, a sign of the brutal fight. She turns to Young-soo and asks if the others with him are his comrades. Her red eyes glint as she asks him to convey her words to them. He agrees, asking what she wants to say, but she just places a hand on his shoulder to move him aside. Ingress watches with a stern, suspicious gaze as the AI approaches. Suddenly, Aleph points her blade at Ingress's chest, prompting Young-soo to shout at her while she calmly asks him to relay her words. She looks Ingress dead in the eyes and asks if he's from the Atalante. Ingress remains silent, staring back with an unreadable expression. Young-soo quickly steps in, trying to de-escalate by formally introducing Ingress to Aleph, the AI robot. He continues, explaining to Ingress that Aleph just wants to ask him something. Ingress doesn't flinch, his eyes locked on the AI, holding him at blade point. Aleph ignores the introduction and repeats her demand for Young-soo to interpret. With her weapon still aimed, she poses the damning question. Did your species destroy the Atalante? Young-soo says the name Ingress and realizes he can understand the aliens without her interpretation. Aleph looks him dead in the eye and makes a shocking confession. His species destroyed the Atalante. A white-haired android named Ingress warns the blue-skinned woman Langet not to act with hostility. With cold red eyes, Ingress continues her threat, warning that if she loses control of her weapon, her target will suffer irreparable damage, a warning clearly aimed at the silent, helmeted Aleph. Suddenly, another armored soldier orders Aleph to put his weapon down, trying to de-escalate the tension. Aleph waves them off, telling Langet and Young-soo it's fine, then allows Ingress to ask her questions. Ingress cuts straight to the chase, demanding to know why they didn't attempt to contact the Atalante. Aleph denies that his group ordered the attack, prompting Ingress to ask if other Boomians were responsible. She presses him further, questioning if his faction has any contact with other members of their race. Aleph begins a history lesson, explaining that the Gorita were once just ferocious animals, as a flashback shows a knight fighting a giant insect. The flashback shows the mounted knight brutally spearing the monstrous Gorita. To combat the beasts, he says, the Chorak were created, elite soldiers shown battling a creature oozing purple blood. At the same time, the Boomians pushed for technological advancement, with their blue-skinned soldiers standing ready for war. A soldier in red and silver armor dramatically throws his sword skyward. The flashback shows primitive, lizard-like creatures crawling out from the rocky ground. Their technological peak was a massive system controlled by a giant, disembodied brain wired to several seated figures. This system was built to intercept the meteors that the Gurita rode to their planet, which was fine when the threats were small. But their world was doomed when they discovered a supermassive meteor was on a collision course with their planet, Bumi. Two figures can only watch in silence as the colossal meteor fills their view screen, its size spelling certain annihilation. The Bumi Grand Assembly made a difficult choice: abandon their world and migrate to a new one. But as a blue-skinned official watches his armored troops, he reveals that this decision is where everything went wrong. The ruling class and those with key roles decided they would be the first to leave on a pioneering mission, leaving the others behind. And those not chosen rebelled, sparking a brutal civil war as a soldier is impaled by purple energy. Chaos erupted as factions turned on each other while crowds of civilians watched the carnage unfold. He explains that some, like a fierce, white-haired female warrior, fought to the very end. But even the allies they thought they could trust were drawn into the conflict, turning on each other. In the end, betrayal was everywhere. The white-haired warrior is struck down by a blast of dark energy. She collapses to her knees, defeated, as the narrator grimly states that, in the end, they all died. The vision of her death becomes more brutal, showing a blade slashing across her face in her final moments. Aleph reveals his own tragic past, clutching a crying baby amidst the fires of war, explaining he fought to protect what mattered. He finishes his story with a simple, powerful declaration: he had to survive. Ingress listens, then asks the critical question: if survival was his only goal, why did he accept Dong Young-soo? Aleph states that with Young-soo's power, they believe they can destroy the giant meteor threatening them all. Ingress turns to Young-soo, asking if he truly trusts them. He gives a simple, confident answer: yes. She remains skeptical, telling him that gut feelings don't provide a precise basis for trust. Young-soo explains his logic, asking her to imagine if he'd landed on the planet alone and trusted no one. He paints a grim picture. Would he just build a hut, dig potatoes, and wait to die alone when the meteor hits? Survival requires cooperation. He concludes that trust isn't a prerequisite for action. It's something you build by taking a chance on others. Convinced, Aleph admits his earlier hostility was just protocol to verify their identities. He finally lowers his weapon, officially downgrading the threat level for Boomyan, as he and Ingress stand down. With the truce settled, Ingress asks Young-soo what his mission is at this base. Young-soo says the base controls reconnaissance satellites, which he needs to locate the crashed Atalante. Ingress understands, but warns they need to move fast, as the high tide brings the Gurita onto the island. Looks like their day is about to get busy. Wasting no time, Langet and Aleph grab their massive rifles, preparing for a fight. The unlikely new squad stands united, as Young-soo declares, "Let's get to work." Aleph takes the lead, pointing out the corridor that leads to the command center on the 3rd floor. Langet stops them, warning everyone to prepare for combat because she can already sense Gurita pheromones. Pow! Young-soo immediately opens fire on a creature, noting that their size and movement are completely different from what he's seen before. Langet clarifies the situation. These Gurita are different because they hatched at an early, underdeveloped stage. Langet explains the Gurita's biology, noting they evolve from an ancestral embryo form and grow larger over time. Examining a dead monster, Langet speculates that these Gurita are at a different developmental stage, questioning if they're more or less evolved. Young-soo steps forward, confidently stating that these creatures are less evolved. Scratching his head, Young-soo wonders how the Gurita managed to coordinate their attack if the rain blocked their usual pheromone communication. He theorizes they might communicate with electricity, which makes Langet ask if he means they're using radios. Langet clarifies his theory, suggesting a species of Gurita might produce bioelectricity, a much more plausible method in the heavy rain. The chilling realization dawns on Young-soo. An intelligent Gurita must have ordered the roadblock. He and Langet press onward. Young-soo asks Aleph if she's seen any unusual Gurita, and she replies from behind that she hasn't confirmed any. Startled, he asks where she is, unable to spot her anywhere. A massive, spiky Gurita variant suddenly bursts from the darkness, lunging at the group. The giant creature barrels towards Young-soo with terrifying speed. It brings its massive claw down in a crushing blow aimed right at him. A flash of purple energy erupts as the creature pins Young-soo, attempting to drain his power. As Young-soo struggles, Langet dives down from above, weapon ready to strike the beast. Pow! Langit delivers a powerful blow to the monster's armored head. At the same moment, Aleph lands a perfect headshot, taking the creature down. Youngsu orders everyone forward, yelling for Ingress to watch his six as another Gurita attacks him from behind. In the nick of time, Aleph appears and skewers the monster through the head, saving Ingress. Ingress asks Aleph if she's alright, and she coolly confirms she's fine. Relieved, Youngsu tells him to keep advancing as he fends off another creature's attack. He tosses his large plasma cutter to Langit, telling her to take the weapon. He orders her to finish off any Gurita that have been knocked down. Giving her a simple battle plan, he tells her to stay out of his way and just swing the weapon vertically. Firing their weapons, the two sprint down a long corridor, flanked by charging monsters. Their path is blocked by a massive Gurita with huge, sweeping horns. The duo strikes the giant beast in a coordinated attack, sending out a shockwave. Aleph and Ingress arrive as backup, with Aleph shouting, "Right!" as she charges in. Affirmative. Youngsu yells back as he and Langit break through and continue their escape. Youngsu glances over his shoulder at the horde, still pursuing them down the dark passage. The end of the tunnel is in sight, a beacon of light in the darkness. Having made it out into the rain, Ingress calls back to them, letting them know they're outside. Youngsu shouts back that they're on their way, as Aleph provides covering fire for their escape. Aleph calmly picks off the pursuing monsters one by one. Over the comms, Aleph reports to Youngsu that the downstairs area is now clear. As they regroup, Youngsu asks if the command center door is open. Youngsu says Ingress will have to open it, relaying that Langit senses frightened Boomian pheromones inside. Ingress acknowledges the intel and prepares to open the door, telling everyone to stay on their guard. As the door slides open, Youngsu aims his weapon inside and announces they are Boomi's defense force, demanding surrender. Inside, Ingress confronts a blue-skinned man, asking what Taurus was doing there. The terrified man, Taurus, explains he was fleeing from traitors. He says he was lucky to find this hiding spot, but got separated from his Mokura while searching for food. He desperately begs them to help him find his Mokura. Youngsu narrates that at that moment, he had no idea what a Mokura even was. Tears streaming down his face, Taurus pleads that he'll do anything they ask. Hiding with only his hands visible, he identifies himself as Tiganoba 3429-76 from the Northern Research Group. He stands with his hands up in surrender as someone calls out his name. Taurus! Taurus repeats that he was fortunate to have found this place to hide. Youngsu aims his rifle at the man and asks if he wants to save his family. Ingress demands that Taurus identify his department and the name of his superior. Crying with his hands raised, Taurus blurts out that he's from the Secretariat and that his superior is Mora, who reports directly to Director Paraka. Flanked by his crew, Ingress confidently orders the hidden survivors to lower their guard and come out. Ingress introduces himself by his full designation, telling the frightened man, Taurus, that he can lower his hands. Bowing low, Taurus says he recognizes Ingress's name, identifying him as a technical advisor who once visited his research group. Tears of relief and desperation stream down his face as he remains prostrated on the floor. But Aleph coldly states that their mission is to recover parts, and civilian rescue is not in the parameters, shocking Taurus. Youngsu quickly cuts in, telling Taurus to think of Aleph as a friendly alien whose mission is to save their planet. He then questions Taurus, asking if the propulsion unit that crashed nearby belongs to them. His interest piqued, Youngsu presses the scientist for more details about the crashed object. Taurus describes a massive white object with solar panels and a human-like profile, a perfect match for the Atalante ship logo shown. As Youngsu listens intently, Taurus cries out with certainty that he knows exactly where the ship part is. He makes them an offer they can't refuse. If they save his family, he'll guide them right to it. Youngsu consults Aleph, who calculates that accepting the deal will increase their mission's success rate by over 36%. Now on their side, Ingress turns to Taurus and asks for a viable escape route from the base. Taurus reveals there's a vehicle called a Baralangita in the upper hangar, but admits he has no idea how to fly it. I know how, Ingress declares, splitting up the team. He'll repair the ship while Youngsu finds Taurus's family. Youngsu agrees to the plan, deciding that he and Aleph will go on the rescue mission together. Noting his own injured arm, Ingress says Langit should provide defense instead, and confirms the new plan. Overwhelmed with hope, Taurus thanks them profusely. Noticing Langit is tearing up, Young-soo gently asks her to help Ingress with the repairs. Wiping her eyes, Langit explains she's fine, having just momentarily synchronized with Taurus's intense emotions. She vows to protect Ingress, who tells Young-soo that he's counting on him to succeed. With a final promise to return, Young-soo leads Aleph and Taurus into the fortress's lower levels. His armored boot splashes into dark, murky water, signaling their descent into a flooded zone. The small group carefully navigates a narrow walkway through a massive, dark, and partially submerged chamber. As Young-soo remarks on how deep they've gone, Taurus confirms they're in the submarine hangar, the fortress's lowest level. Ingress radios in, asking for a position check, and Young-soo confirms they're just about to reach the hangar. Young-soo then asks for a status update, and Ingress reports that he's just finishing up the repairs. Back in the upper hangar, Ingress and Langit work together on the Langita, a large gray mech. Ingress calls Taurus over the comms, asking if there's a problem on their end. Young-soo cryptically replies that it's not exactly a problem. He announces he's found Taurus's family, as the scientist is reunited with his wife and child in a tearful embrace. Over the radio, Ingress gives a simple order. Good. Return immediately, and Young-soo affirms. Taurus introduces his wife, Saren, and son, Nobe, explaining that their rescuers are from a planet called Earth. Young-soo quickly introduces himself and Aleph, telling the family they need to get moving immediately. A sudden tremor shakes the hangar as Young-soo asks about the source of the vibrations. Ingress warns that the floodgates might be opening, just as Young-soo spots a large shape in the water and asks if it's a submarine. It's not a submarine. The terrifying, monstrous head of a massive gorilla emerges from the depths. Thinking fast, Taurus says he knows another way out, and Young-soo yells for everyone to run. The colossal creature rises from the water, dwarfing the fleeing humans with its immense, spiny claws. Langit radios in, telling Young-soo to get to the hangar since they've had to change their escape route. While carrying the child, Young-soo asks for their destination, and Taurus shouts that the new path leads to the eastern mudflats. Up above, Langit powers up the Langita mech, announcing that she's taking off. A voice calls out that their only exit is just around the corner of the dark, flooded walkway. Young-soo sprints along the railing, confirming that the exit is just ahead. Taurus yells that the gate isn't automated and must be opened manually. He lunges for a large lever, shouting that they just need to grab and lift it. A massive, dark wave suddenly surges through the hangar, rushing towards them. The wave crashes over them, sweeping them off their feet as Young-soo screams Taurus's name. Aleph manages to grab the scientist, issuing a critical warning. An electric current has been detected in the water. Young-soo shields the terrified child, as Taurus clings to him for dear life, Aleph standing guard against the new threat. A blue-skinned man urges a woman named Serene and a child named Nobai to escape, but Serene pleads for him to come back. Elsewhere, two armored figures, one in yellow and one in white, struggle to force open a heavy, frozen mechanism. With a heavy groan, the gears turn and a massive floodgate rises, revealing a dark, watery passage. The white-helmeted soldier, Young-soo, tells his smaller companion, Aleph, that the floodgate is open and it's time to move. He realizes with dawning horror that the gate will close again if someone isn't holding the mechanism. Go, he shouts to Aleph, knowing a sacrifice must be made. Back at the controls, the blue-skinned man strains to hold the gate open, screaming for them to hurry. Run, Dong Young-soo, Aleph says, staying behind as Young-soo curses, powerless to stop the sacrifice. He sprints through the dark tunnel towards the bright, watery expanse at the other end. As he runs, he remembers their destination, the Southwest Sulphur Stone area of Northern Research Group headquarters. The blue-skinned man screams the same location, his final message echoing through the chamber. His last thought is a prayer for Saren and Nobe's protection as a colossal, tusked monster emerges from the depths behind him. Young-soo glances back over his shoulder, a look of grim determination on his face as he makes his escape. He turns just in time to see the same horrifying monster burst from the water right in front of him. Guess the kaiju found the exit too. The beast's massive head sends both Young-soo and Aleph flying through the air. Amid the chaos, the child Nobe is thrown helplessly into the sky. Young-soo acts fast, twisting in midair to catch the falling child. Splash! He hits the water, absorbing the full impact to protect Nobai. Held safely, the child asks if he's okay, and Young-soo grits out a simple yes. Now, holding Nobi in the water near the Golden Gate Bridge, Young-soo is surrounded by smaller beasts as a drone pilot orders him to retreat. The giant monster surfaces, its gaze fixed on the body of Saren floating lifelessly nearby. "Damn it," Young-soo mutters, holding the child tight, completely trapped. But Aleph makes a move, using a weapon to scale the giant creature's hide. The monster's skin begins to crackle and glow with immense electrical power. Aleph stands atop the beast, ready to strike, as the blue energy intensifies around them. A massive electrical discharge blasts Aleph off the creature's back. The electrified beast now turns its wrath on Young-soo, who kneels protectively over the child in the water. Unnoticed, Nobi's feet suddenly sprout sharp, icy claws. Young-soo shields the child as laser fire from above begins picking off the smaller creatures one by one. He yells up to the friendly drone, ordering the pilot Ingress to lower its altitude for extraction. The blue-skinned pilot inside the craft quickly responds, "Got it." Enraged by the attack, the colossal monster thrashes wildly in the water. It swings its massive, spiked tail through the air like a deadly whip. Smash. The tail connects with the drone, shattering it instantly. The pilot screams a warning about an emergency landing as the wreckage plummets toward the water. With their air support gone, a horde of the smaller creatures charges across the surface of the water. "Nova, cover your ears," Young-soo shouts, calling the child by a new name as he prepares to make a final stand. He lands in the shallows, bracing for the onslaught. While carrying Nova, he opens fire on the swarming enemies. He's quickly overwhelmed as the creatures close in, surrounding him completely. But Nova isn't helpless, cupping their hands as a blue frosty energy begins to form. The child calmly faces down two of the lunging creatures. They cross their arms, unleashing powerful tendrils of swirling water. The water whips lash out, striking the monsters with incredible speed and force. One of the creatures is partially disintegrated by the powerful water attack. Even the giant monster pauses its advance, surprised by this sudden display of power. The entire horde freezes as Young-soo stands guard over the small, seated child. Out of nowhere, a flash of purple light slices one of the creatures cleanly in two. A new challenger has appeared. Now safely on a ledge, Langet screams over the roaring water, checking if Young-soo is all right. Hugged tightly by a terrified Taurus, Young-soo reports that Ingress is currently fixing their ride. A system notification flashes in Aleph's vision, confirming her recovery is 50% complete. As Young-soo faces the colossal Gurita, Aleph reports that it's commanding the smaller creatures and asks for a sitrep. Cradling the child, Young-soo explains their aerial transport was forced to land after taking a direct hit. A swarm of Guritas descends on Ingress and Langet as they work frantically on the grounded ship. While making emergency repairs, Ingress yells for his team to buy him some time. Aleph calmly assesses the dire situation, concluding that the only way out is to eliminate the command-type Gurita. As bullets ping off the beast's hide, Aleph reports mission success is rising, but awaits Young-soo's command. Firing a single shot to get its attention, Young-soo calmly tells the monster, "Here." The terrified child screams that more Guritas are coming up from behind them. Young-soo calls out the child's name, Nova, getting his attention for the next move. He quickly detaches a device from his belt. With the plan set, he tells Nova to hold on tight. With the boy perched on his shoulders, Young-soo stands as the last line of defense against the approaching horde and their massive leader. He shields Nova with his own body as one of the creatures lunges forward to attack. Just in the nick of time, their repaired aerial vehicle flies overhead, blasting a Gurita to pieces. Over the comms, Ingress announces he's airborne and requests the plasma cutter immediately. Aleph radios in, confirming she's entering the communication channel. Young-soo spots Aleph and orders her to lower her altitude to rendezvous with the ship. In mid-air, Aleph skillfully prepares to make a crucial handoff. Calculating its trajectory, Aleph notes the falling plasma cutter's constant velocity makes it an easy target to intercept. Perfect! Langet catches the weapon, telling Ingress to head for the target as Aleph confirms a 100% success rate. Ingress confirms he's on it, piloting the Baralangita straight towards the gargantuan monster. Dangling precariously from the ship, Langet powers up the plasma cutter for a devastating aerial strike. With a powerful downward thrust, she impales the massive Gurita directly in its head. But even with a spear in its skull, the colossal beast still looms menacingly over Young-soo. Thinking fast, Langit uses the plasma cutter to slice through the massive suspension cable of a nearby bridge. The super thick steel cable snaps under the intense heat. The severed cable whips through the air with unstoppable force. The massive cable crashes down like a metal tsunami, crushing the giant Garita's head and ending the fight for good. The barrel Angita hovers over the chaos as Ingress calls out to Young-soo for extraction. Young-soo grabs onto a deployed rope, swinging himself and Nova to safety. The colossal leader slumps in defeat, its now docile horde crawling over its lifeless body. As a small device clatters to the ground, the remaining smaller Guritas suddenly collapse, their life force extinguished. Later, on a quiet shore covered in strange red flora, Aleph radios Young-soo to ask if their position is secure. Young-soo, his helmet retracted, turns and asks if Aleph is okay after the ordeal. Aleph reports her system recovery is stable, and the Gurita threat has been neutralized. Young-soo gives his own report. Their vehicle is lost, but they salvaged some gear and have reviewed the operation. Holding Saren's lifeless body, Aleph wonders aloud if more perfect calculations could have prevented this loss. Continuing her debrief, Aleph grimly reports that they suffered casualties. The devastating truth hangs in the air as the report confirms Saren has died. Young-soo looks on with a heavy heart, wondering if things can ever be the same after this. In the quiet aftermath, Aleph carries Saren's body through the field of red. She reports to Young-soo that their vehicle and equipment were lost to the flood. The tragic debrief continues. Both Saren and Taris have died. Aleph finishes, stating Taris's body was too severely damaged for recovery. Ingress gently covers Nova's eyes, telling the boy not to look. But Nova removes his hand, calmly stating that his father taught him, "Everyone dies, and that the moment can come sooner than you think." Aleph addresses Ingress as he stands with the grieving child, Nova. She explains their grim tradition. Bodies are recovered and recycled into resources for the planet. Young-soo, his face masked, asks if there's no ceremony, and Ingress confirms they only have speeches. Young-soo finds their customs to be a cold and suffocating system. Deciding to honor the dead his own way, he suggests they pay their respects according to Earth's traditions. The scene settles on a quiet alien landscape of red flora under a peaceful sky. Carrying a shovel, Young-soo walks through the field toward a solitary tree on a hill. With a heavy thud, his shovel bites into the earth, beginning the somber task. As Young-soo digs, Aleph appears in a new yellow outfit and asks if there's anything she can do to help. He simply asks her to bring some food and water, and she agrees without hesitation. As Aleph watches from a distance, Young-soo continues his work, steeling himself to endure the pain. Later, his helmet off, Young-soo accepts Saren's shrouded body from Aleph, reflecting that he doesn't belong in paradise. Together, he and Ingress gently lower the body into its final resting place. Young-soo asks Aleph, whom he calls Al, to find a flat rock for a headstone, and she complies. Finding a suitable tree branch, Young-soo decides it will work for what he has in mind. He carefully carves the branch into a specific shape. Aleph returns with a large flat stone, asking where to put it. Young-soo directs her to place it before the tree. Young-soo kneels, writing on a cloth and lighting incense in a makeshift ritual. While writing a final message, he asks Al to bring the provisions she gathered, and she confirms. The ceremony begins, with Young-soo standing solemnly before the grave as his comrades watch from behind. He then performs a deep, traditional bow, kneeling and pressing his forehead to the ground. From above, the lone figure is seen paying his final respects to the fallen. Standing, Young-soo explains to his alien companions that this is the farewell custom of his people. He offers to teach the ritual to Nova, who tearfully agrees, wanting to say goodbye too. Young-soo explains that he wrote the message in his own language, since he's unfamiliar with theirs. He carefully guides Nova through the motions, instructing him to kneel and bow twice. As Young-soo tells him he can rise, a heartbreaking sob escapes from the young boy. Overcome with grief, Nova breaks down completely, crying uncontrollably. As Young-soo holds him, the boy cries out that he misses his mom and dad. Young-soo offers what little comfort he can, promising that they will always live on in the boy's heart. He then lights the prayer cloth, telling Nova it's time to send his parents to heaven. The fire consumes the cloth as Young-soo expresses a final wish to meet them again someday. Holding the burning prayer aloft, he asks for one last touch, seeing a beautiful vision of the reunited family. The last of the ash floats away from his hand, a final, silent goodbye carried on the wind. Sometime later, Ingress asks Langit if Taurus revealed the Atalante's location, and she confirms it's near the northern sulfur springs. A somber flashback shows Young-Soo's words of comfort to the crying child. His memories drift further back to a younger, more innocent time when he believed good went to heaven and bad to hell. The scene shifts to a lecture where a scientist explains that, like water, blood expands when it freezes. The lecturer elaborates on their hibernation process, which involves removing most of the body's moisture, including blood. They then inject an antifreeze solution, putting the body into a low-power state. Holding an anatomical model, the scientist begins to detail the significant organ-specific risks involved. He points out the danger of cardiac arrhythmia once blood flow is restored after hibernation. The warning is stark. Hibernation training comes with severe risks, including permanent disability and even death. He concludes by stating that department heads will be collecting consent forms for participation. A young man with blonde hair reacts with disbelief and shock. In an office, he desperately asks the superior if this means he's been disqualified from the crew selection. The superior coldly tells him he can return to his original unit if he chooses. The recruit pleads his case, questioning why a single allergy would derail his career after he's done so well. His superior gives him the hard truth that one allergy could get him killed during hibernation. Defeated, the young man snaps to attention, gives a final salute, and states it was a pleasure working together. With only 2 candidates remaining, a young man signs his consent form under the watchful eye of a medic. The next file is pulled, announcing the next applicant for evaluation, Jocelyn Yates. A blonde woman named Jocelyn is asked if she has any health concerns she needs to report. As she signs the form, she nonchalantly asks if they'll all have to shave their hair before training. With a confident smirk, she pushes the completed form forward, ready for whatever comes next. The medic explains that her brain implant was removed for the mission, but warns there's still a risk of residual metal. A young Young-Soo accepts the danger, stating that it's a standard risk since all astronauts have brain implants. He asks the medic to confirm that his paperwork is clear, and she verifies that it is. The section chief, his eyes glowing an intense orange, coldly asks which personnel are going to be dropped. Speaking to Young-Soo, he reveals the cut list and informs him that Jesse's being discharged and sent back to Alaska. Young-Soo, surprised by the number of participants, asks the section chief if he has personal experience with hibernation training. He admits he has none, explaining that despite being in the Space Force, his career has felt more like the Army. The section chief dismisses his concerns, calling it a simple technical issue. Placing a hand on Young-Soo's shoulder, he expresses his hope that the procedure proceeds without any accidents. Young-Soo walks down the sterile hallway with a look of grim determination, ready to face the trial. Now in uniform, he stands with the other recruits, their faces stoic as they await the hibernation process. He walks down a long gantry lined with rows upon rows of hibernation chambers, the scale of the operation sinking in. An order echoes through the facility. All personnel are to enter their designated hibernation chambers. As a breathing mask is fitted over his face, technicians announce they will begin anesthesia as soon as the engineers are ready. The maintenance team gives a thumbs up, signaling that chambers 1 and 2 are ready for the procedure. With all sections reporting ready, the final command is given to begin anesthesia. As he drifts into unconsciousness, a traumatic memory flashes. 2 masked men standing over a freshly executed body. In his memory, a younger Young-Soo watches impassively as the killers calmly walk away from the scene. The dream shifts to another horrific memory, a car engulfed in a violent, fiery explosion. He walks through a haunting gallery of his past relationships and experiences, all leading toward the burning wreck. He stops before a full-length mirror, seeing his own reflection superimposed over the fiery disaster behind him. A brief, tender memory surfaces of a girl with red cat ear headphones, resting her hand on his shoulder. But even this fleeting moment of peace is consumed by fire, a memory too painful to hold on to. Wah! Young-Soo's eyes snap open as he wakes with a start in a hospital bed, an oxygen tube under his nose. A masked doctor leans over him, announcing that Dong Young-Soo of Maintenance Section 1 has regained consciousness. Nearby, 2 other recently awakened crew members cheerfully remark that the supposed 2-week hibernation felt like a quick nap. Young-Soo looks utterly horrified, the terrifying realism of his hibernation-induced nightmares still fresh in his mind. Thud! The man in the bed next to him suddenly convulses and crashes hard onto the floor. Panic fills the room as medics rush in, shouting that a recovering crew member has collapsed and to monitor his vitals immediately. Lying in bed amidst the chaos, Young-soo tries to ground himself, thinking he's on planet Boomy and this is all just a nightmare. His hope shatters as a dark, menacing silhouette materializes at the foot of his bed. The scene shifts to the present on the alien world, where strange, fluffy white creatures call out across the red landscape. Riding a small transport raft, Langet points to the creatures and asks what they are. Young-soo admits it's his first time seeing them too. A large drone hovers above, lowering their small craft into the endless field of red flora. Langet asks about the fate of the Atalante and the other crew, but Alepht's AI explains their unit is designed for first arrival in emergencies. Carried on Alepht's shoulders, Nova recalls his father mentioning a device located near a tunnel exit. Ingress studies a map, confirming that he has a rough idea of the area Nova described. As they trek through the alien fields, Aleph asks Ingress for the reason behind their current heading. Before he can answer, a massive white, winged creature gracefully swoops past the group. Langet excitedly identifies the majestic animal, telling the others it's called a rabba. She points out an adorable, fluffy rabba nearby, and Nova shyly agrees that it's very pretty. Young-soo cuts the sightseeing short with a dose of reality. You have to catch it to eat it. Yap! With a battle cry, Langet leaps into action, attempting to spear the startled creature for dinner. But the little rabba is surprisingly quick, darting away with incredible speed as Young-soo notes its agility. Back at their makeshift camp, Taris laments the difficult hunt, while Langet returns triumphantly, as Ingress tends to a fire. Whoa! Langet proudly shows off her bounty, joyfully announcing that she caught 2 of the fluffy creatures. Back at camp, Ingress perfectly roasts one of the creatures, offering the first piece while he starts grilling the second. Gathered around the campfire, Langet kindly offers a freshly cooked piece of meat to Nova. But just as Young-soo is about to eat, Aleph warns him of a severe immune response, leaving him to wonder if he's stuck eating mushrooms. With dinner sorted, Young-soo decides to give Aleph an impromptu music lesson, telling her to lower her vocal pitch. The lesson continues with Ingress, as Young-soo demonstrates a hand motion and rhythm, while Langet eagerly asks for a turn. Young-soo then teaches Nova a beat by tapping on a metal box, and the boy happily says he wants to join in. Soon, the whole group is making music together as Langet encourages them to add a melody and follow her lead. Langet playfully sings a little jingle, asking if anyone is curious about her outfit's brand while Young-soo reads a book. The campfire concert is in full swing as the survivors create a surprisingly harmonious melody together. Langet smiles warmly, lost in the simple joy of making music with her newfound companions under the alien sky. As the melody drifts over a field of flowers, Young-soo asks Langet what she wrote, and she playfully teases him as the chapter comes to a grand finale. The scene shifts as the group plans their next move. Young-soo confirms they must pass through a village, and Taris warns that traitors may have occupied it. Now approaching a massive circular gateway, Young-soo silently hopes they can avoid any urban warfare. Walking along a high rampart, they are met with a breathtaking and somber sight, a valley filled with countless white crosses. The sheer scale of the graveyard is overwhelming, and they realize this must be the place Nova described. Staring out at the endless field of memorials, Ingress dryly remarks that it looks like a metal album cover. Langet, however, casually dismisses the crosses as just an old defense system, telling the others not to worry. She then notices Ingress seems affected, asking if he's okay and noting the air is thick with a strong, sweet scent. Trying to identify the origin of the smell, she wonders if it's Garita or Boomian, noting its strangely refined quality. Sensing danger, Ingress quickly orders everyone to put on their helmets and block the pheromones blanketing the entire village. With their helmets secured, the team turns to Nova, the only one unaffected, and asks if he knows where the villagers went. Nova looks away, admitting he fled during the fighting, but confirming that a fierce battle took place right where they stand. He recalls that the 200 villagers who lived there were ultimately overwhelmed and pushed back by the enemy. Ingress finds the scene unnervingly quiet for a recent battlefield, while Langet asks if Nova is safe without a helmet. She wonders aloud if Nova's immunity is related to his mysterious ability to control the Garita in the sea. Ingress reveals that it's a rare ability among Boomians, the power to strategically release his own pheromones. Aleph compares it to how ants and bees use pheromones, prompting a curious Nova to ask if ants and bees are names. Ingress delivers a grim revelation. The Paluma can control not just creatures, but other Boomians as well. Alerted by this new information, Aleph presses him for the specific details of how this mind control works. He explains that the Paluma send commands like attack or stop through pheromonal signals. A powerful Paluma's pheromones can force emotional synchronization in others, compelling them to act against their will. Attack or stop, he repeats, emphasizing the absolute and terrifying simplicity of the commands. Aleph concludes that the Paluma possess an incredibly dangerous ability. Ingress reassures her that their helmets control the airflow, keeping them safe from the influence for now. He then reveals the key identifying trait of a Paluma, their hair color, gesturing toward the white-haired Nova. Aleph processes this, then turns to Ingress with a direct question. "Then you aren't a Paluma, are you?" "I'm not," he confirms, explaining he only knows about them from past colleagues and has almost no Paluma talent himself. SHK. Suddenly, Aleph's head snaps to the side, announcing that her motion sensors have detected movement. Ingress immediately sprints into action, ordering Aleph to pinpoint the target's exact location. Above, Aleph asks, just as a hostile figure with a massive sword leaps down from an archway overhead. Clad in a red cape and a unique helmet, the mysterious attacker lands with deadly grace, sword at the ready. Pow! Aleph reacts instantly, raising her rifle and firing at the sudden threat. Clang. In an incredible display of power, the attacker simply punches the bullet out of the air, shattering it on impact. Moving with impossible speed, the assailant kicks the rifle right out of Aleph's hands. Steam pours from the attacker's mask as they exhale, their power seemingly building with every breath. Lying on the ground, Aleph looks up in shock and recognition, crying out, "What? Master?" Just as another shot rings out. Whoosh! The attacker, their master, effortlessly dodges the bullet as it zips past their head. The shot came from Ingress, but the attacker ignores him completely, lunging forward with blinding speed. The swordsman closes the distance in a flash, poised to strike Ingress down. With a powerful clang, Ingress barely manages to block the attacker's massive sword with his forearm guard. The sheer force of the blow sends Ingress stumbling back as the red-caped swordsman prepares another devastating swing. Watching the brutal attack unfold, Langit screams out Youngsu's name in sheer terror. Crack! The attacker's blade smashes into the helmet of another crew member, sending a puff of air from the impact. The mysterious warrior pins Ingress to the ground, who gasps that he can't breathe under the crushing weight. Suddenly, another fighter in a white and red suit leaps into the fray, brandishing her own massive blade. The red-suited warrior charges forward, launching herself directly at the powerful assailant. "Stop!" A commanding voice rings out from a blue-skinned woman with long white hair, ordering an end to the fight. The white-haired woman walks forward, apologizing to her guests for the harm caused by the attacker, whom she calls Paraka. Seeing the aftermath, Langit rushes over, telling someone their helmet tube was cut and offering her own as a replacement. With her helmet off, a horrified Langit points to Youngsu's face, which is now covered in alarming red blotches. Youngsu struggles for air, gasping desperately as the pheromones wreak havoc on his body. Aleph takes charge, ordering someone to put Langit's helmet on Youngsu for oxygen while they find medication. The white-haired woman approaches Aleph, asking if they are the owners of a nearby crashed spacecraft. As the crew tends to Youngsu, the woman remarks on the interesting and novel technologies their group possesses. Turning to leave, she offers to provide assistance, but only if they are willing to ask for it. She glances back with Paraka at her side, pointedly asking why they haven't requested her help yet. Aleph ignores her, focusing on Youngsu and stating the need to secure his airway and block the contaminated air. Trying to help, Langit cheerfully offers her helmet directly to Youngsu. Aleph voices concern for Langit's safety in the thick aerosol as the white-haired woman once again asks about the wreckage. Langit is taken aback, surprised by the woman's persistent questioning about their crashed ship. Aleph decides to engage, asking the woman if she knows about their ship, the Atalante. The woman confirms she's aware of the Atalante and had expected its crew to possess advanced technology. Leading them toward a grand structure, she asks what mission could have possibly brought them to this place. She guides the survivors down a long walkway, explaining that they've arrived at a remote research group. Aleph explains their dire situation. Earth is dying, and this new planet is threatened by a giant meteor. Their mission, Aleph reveals, is to destroy it, prompting the woman to ask if they mean the Mauta Rugbata. Aleph carefully confirms that destroying the meteor is indeed their goal, if everything goes according to plan. Later, inside a lab, the woman puts on a record, musing that it might be better to create a new medicine from scratch. Aleph, now wearing a yellow jacket, seems intrigued and asks if there's really a way to do that. Another android with bunny ear antennae explains that the issue is physiological changes caused by pheromones. The white-haired woman, now in a sleek bodysuit, reveals that Bumian physical enhancement isn't entirely natural. Changing into a white hoodie, she explains that Bumians are injected with enhancers from a young age and trained to use them. The scene flashes to a suffering Langet as the narration explains red pheromones grant strength but cause severe side effects. The woman explains that special nanobots are used to manage these dangerous side effects. She states her plan. She will analyze Youngsu's immune system and train the nanobots to suppress his adverse reaction. The bunny-eared android points out a critical flaw. The nanobots are optimized for Bumians and will need adjustment. Holding up a blood bag, the android offers Youngsu's clean blood to use as a control for their experiment. Now, in a full cleanroom suit, the woman smiles confidently and asks the android to trust in her skills. In the lab, the two researchers share a moment of silent, mutual understanding before they begin their work. Watching her, Ingress asks if she's a priest, to which she replies that she was once trying to become one. Ingress is skeptical, saying her knowledge is exclusive to priests, yet he's never heard of her. She introduces herself as Penora, an aspiring priest, but laments that nobles always take the high positions. Removing her mask, she corrects herself, revealing her real name was Talana and she served on the Northeast Council. Talana poetically compares her past as an entertainer who could move audiences to the enchanting power of a priest. Aleph monitors Youngsu's vitals, announcing that his body temperature is beginning to drop. Aleph checks in with Youngsu, who, now wearing a helmet, confirms that his breathing has become much more comfortable. A new blue-skinned woman with glasses and her hair in a bun appears, cynically remarking that things wouldn't be so bad if all Bumians were as sincere as their guests. She gets straight to the point, asking them to be honest and correctly guessing they suspect she's a traitor. Langet questions the woman's motives, asking why she would help them when their clothes clearly mark them as defense forces. Now dressed, the white-haired woman admits their story is more compelling than Raja's plan, making her curious about their next move. She reveals a horrifying truth. The colorful flowers in the yard are actually traces of nerve gas. Langet confronts her directly, asking why a traitor would betray her new allies to help them. The woman confidently states she has the power to solve their problem, prompting Langet to question what problem she means. Mockingly, she asks if their grand plan is just to blow up the Mauta Ragbata, or maybe nudge it off course. She lays out their biggest obstacle. The nearest spaceport is already occupied by a man named Raja. To take back the spaceport or launch any rockets, she tells Langet, they'll need an army they don't have. As if on cue, armed soldiers suddenly surround the white-haired woman in the cavernous room. Glowing with power, she explains that after a mental synchronization, she found plenty of talented soldiers and intends to use them. One of her new soldiers reveals Raja's grim objective, to let all Bumians die peacefully in a shared dream. The woman smirks at her controlled soldier, sarcastically asking if he'd prefer they all wake up and kill her instead. Ingress demands she free the researchers, arguing he'll continue the mission with them, and that saving the planet helps her too. Penora counters with a chilling question. Who would be more helpful in saving this planet? You or me? Youngsu internally admits Ingress is right, but can't help but wonder if Penora's ruthless plan has merit in their desperate situation. He continues to weigh the options, thinking that siding with Penora would instantly give them the troops they so desperately need. Damn! He grimaces, realizing that trying to stay neutral in this conflict will only lead to everyone losing. In a flashback, a section chief is questioned about his actions while holding a chess piece. Tap. He coldly knocks over a pawn, explaining that in the end, only the pawns are the ones who die. Back in the present, Youngsu concludes that there's no such thing as easily usable troops, only soldiers who will die. Turning to Penora, Youngsu admits he had a crazy thought and agrees they need more personnel for their mission. But he challenges her, asking if her mind control method is a sustainable solution for dealing with other Bumians they will meet. Penora acknowledges his noble dream and civilization, but coldly states that he has clearly made up his mind. She leans in with a sinister smile, asking what he will do if she simply kills the Bumians under her control. Clack. In response, Young-Soo's hand snaps to a weapon at his side, his grip tightening with resolve. He lunges, aiming the activated weapon directly at Penora in a blinding flash of energy. As the confrontation erupts, Ingress grabs Langet, shouting that it is time for them to go. With his weapon drawn, Young-Soo charges headfirst into the fray. He barrels through Penora's mind-controlled soldiers, clearing a path with brutal force. What Young-Soo shouts in disbelief as Penora calmly reassures the Earthling that she has no intention of killing him. Fleeing down a long corridor, Young-Soo yells for Aleph to go back and help the others. But Aleph is completely overwhelmed, pinned by a swarm of soldiers and unable to move. One of Penora's soldiers stands firm, blade at the ready, blocking the path forward. Through his visor, Young-Soo's bloodshot eye reveals a burning, desperate determination. Pow! He lands a devastating blow, shattering a soldier's helmet with a single punch. Standing over his defeated foes, he gives the remaining soldiers a simple, menacing order: get lost. Unfazed, one of the soldiers simply picks up Young-Soo's discarded rifle and takes aim. Aleph, still trapped, urgently warns Young-Soo that Penora herself is now on the move. Hearing this, Young-Soo breaks into a desperate sprint, yelling for Penora to stop. He relentlessly plows through her forces, trying to cut off her advance. Spotting a potential escape route, Ingress shouts for Langet to head for the arched hole up ahead. Penora's soldiers give chase, running them down a seemingly endless white corridor. Safely inside a defensive passage, Ingress slumps against a ladder, finally taking a moment to catch his breath. He looks over at Langet and Nova, amazed at the sheer power required to control so many people at once. He theorizes that Penora must be using the field of gas sprayers to release her controlling pheromones. If so, he realizes he has to reach the central control room to shut down the sprayers, just as an explosion rocks the passage behind him. Suddenly, Nova lunges for Langet's massive weapon as someone screams, "Langet, no!" Langet stands unnervingly still, her eyes glowing and face covered in red markings, clearly under the pheromone's control. A voice desperately pleads for her to snap out of it, but she remains entranced, her weapon held tight. With a powerful swing, she unleashes a massive energy blade from her weapon, forcing Nova to dive for his life. Thrown to the ground, Nova looks up in absolute horror as the deadly energy blade sweeps just over his head. Thud. Trembling with effort, a blue-skinned woman in red and white armor pins a man to the ground with her weapon. A blue-skinned man with black hair urgently tells her the operation has failed and that she needs to run. Ingress holds the armored woman, declaring that he, Nova, and Young-Soo are heading for the central control room. The armored woman offers her support, asking how she can get to the control room to help. Pointing the way, Nova shouts that there's an elevator straight ahead that goes to the bottom floor. While grappling with two soldiers, Ingress yells for Aleph, asking if she can get them off him. Pow! Aleph responds instantly, delivering a devastating punch to a soldier's helmet. With blinding speed, she ducks under a swing and counters with a swift elbow strike. Wham! She drives her knee deep into another soldier's abdomen. Using her opponent's momentum against him, Aleph expertly flips him over her shoulder. She slams the soldier to the ground, already bracing for the next attack from the surrounding enemies. With a brutal chop to the neck, she takes down another one of Penora's soldiers. Slash. A purple energy blade extends from her hand, slicing clean through an enemy's torso. As Aleph clears a path, Ingress shouts for Al to run for the elevator while he carries the injured armored woman. He carves a path forward, slicing through another soldier who stands in his way. Good, I can see the elevator, he shouts, seeing their escape route just ahead. But as the doors slide open, their hopes die. A fresh squad of soldiers stands waiting inside. Now in the control room, the armored woman and Nova stare at a massive organic machine as she asks what it is. Nova's eyes widen in recognition, identifying it as a device that converts Garita pheromones. He explains its purpose is to spray the pheromones in large amounts, prompting Ingress to tell him to find a safe place to hide. A massive hooded, alien creature with a single red eye questions if it's right to let them all kill each other. The new white-haired, blue-skinned woman gently embraces a small, red creature, stating she wants to save as many people as possible. Back in the fight, the armored woman struggles to block a sword strike from one of Penora's soldiers. Clang. She parries the attack with her weapon, the impact creating a blinding flash of energy. The soldier's relentless assault knocks her off her feet and onto the floor. He raises his sword, preparing to deliver the final, killing blow. With sparks flying from her weapon, the armored woman grits her teeth, barely holding back his blade. The hooded alien looms over the fight, telling the downed woman that it doesn't want to kill her either. Crack. A different, bulkier creature intervenes, smashing the attacking soldier away with incredible force. The soldier is sent flying through the air before crashing violently into a railing high above. Seizing the moment, the armored woman rolls onto her side and takes aim with her rifle. Before she can fire, she's brutally pinned to the ground by the bulky creature's massive claw. The white-haired woman emerges from the mouth of a massive alien beast, effortlessly holding the captured soldier. Watching from the control room, Nova screams a desperate warning that the middle tank is a mixer. A voice confirms, entry confirmed, as Ingress, armed with a small blade, approaches a long walkway leading to a strange machine. He stands before the grotesque organic device, recalling a warning that something was put in his blood to neutralize a reaction. Just as Ingress is about to strike, the blue-skinned commander grabs his wrist, stopping him cold. The commander glares at Ingress, reading the determination in his expression. Suddenly, the commander lurches forward, coughing violently as red markings spread across his face. Outside, a sprayer activates, releasing a cloud of mist over the field of colorful flowers. Another soldier stumbles and falls amidst the endless rows of graves. A close-up on a monstrous red eye reveals the intelligence behind the unfolding chaos. A bizarre, rocket-propelled creature streaks through the sky, trailing red energy. It's part of a swarm of biomechanical beasts descending upon the flower-covered battlefield. Two blue-skinned soldiers look up in terror as the unexpected aerial assault begins. The black-haired man watches in horror as giant, skeletal creatures emerge from the ground, desecrating the graveyard. Gasp! He clutches his chest, overwhelmed by a surge of purple energy coursing through his body. His agony is cut short as a massive alien creature bites down hard on his shoulder. The alien queen calmly declares her true intention: to kill every last Boomian in this place. And with that chilling declaration, the chapter comes to a stunning, terrifying close. A monstrous creature holds two blue-skinned figures captive, declaring them traitors who chose safety over their species' survival. The red-armored being tells the other that it would be better for Dong Young-soo to join them than these hypocrites. Suddenly, a golden-armored warrior with a white mask leaps toward the massive beast. With a swift slash of his sword, he severs the monster's claw, freeing one of the captives. The golden warrior lands perfectly, poised for his next move. In a flash, he catches the falling blue-skinned woman, saving her from the hard landing. Up close, the woman looks up at her mysterious rescuer with the glowing red eyes. Not done yet, the golden warrior spins and slices off one of the monster's massive tusks. He asks if Langet is okay, and she confirms she's fine, still safe in his arms. Elsewhere, Young-soo spots another massive, insectoid creature approaching, and shouts a warning that Penora is coming. He barely dodges out of the way as the beast attacks, knocking his sword from his grasp. Tap! Young-soo quickly scoops up his sword, a small golden card gleaming on its hilt. He immediately spins into a counterattack, slashing at the creature's legs with blinding speed. Facing the overwhelming beast, Young-soo calls out to Al, desperately requesting supporting fire. From a high railing, the golden warrior, Aleph, aims a massive rifle, ordering Young-soo to get clear of the Garita. Aleph takes aim while Young-soo prepares for the impact on the walkway below. A brilliant red energy beam slams directly into the Garita's head with pinpoint accuracy. The creature reels back from the blast, purple fluid erupting from the wound as Young-soo holds his ground. As the monster's head disintegrates into purple mist, Young-soo cautiously wonders if it's over. But then a white-haired woman appears atop the dissolving creature, and Young-soo frantically yells that Penora is on the monster. The purple mist begins to bubble and rise around Young-soo's feet, leaving him completely bewildered. Langet screams a warning from afar, telling Dong Young-soo to watch his footing. "I'm fine," he shouts back, just as black tendrils erupt from the purple ooze and hoist him into the air. He desperately clings to the tendrils, but they begin to snap under the strain. The last tendril breaks, and Young-soo plummets into the strange purple substance below. He lands on solid ground, but realizes that getting back up from the treacherous pit will be difficult. Penora informs Aleph that he seems to be moving outside, and that she'll track him, ordering the others to provide support. Aleph warns Young-soo not to take unnecessary risks, and with an affirmative, he's on his feet and running. As Young-soo reaches a massive gate, a monstrous creature smashes through from the other side. Outside, the situation is dire, as Penora is being swarmed by a gorita in a field of flowers. From a high vantage point, Young-soo reports that the Boomians are being massacred below, confirming the situation is critical. Aleph chimes in, reporting that his position is also engaged with the gorita threat. A blue-skinned man named Ingress frantically checks on Langit, who reassures him that she's okay. Thank goodness. Ingress breathes a sigh of relief as he and another soldier strain to pull a large crate. Langit asks Ingress what on earth he's moving as he and several others push the massive container. "Weapons," he yells back, leading the charge to move the heavy supply crate. They shove the crate open, revealing racks of rifles, much to the surprise of a spiky helmeted leader. The leader roars at his troops, ordering them to arm themselves from the central stairs immediately. Another man asks Langit for Young-soo's location, and she tells him he's downstairs, chasing Penora. The man turns to the leader, insisting they need to go support Young-soo in the front yard. But the leader disagrees, stating they must clear the fortress interior before they can risk going down. Director Paraka screams into his comms, trying to raise the 1st Cavalry commander. A soldier delivers the grim news. The 1st commander is dead. Paraka desperately calls for the 2nd, but gets only silence. Another soldier reports that the 3rd commander is at the hangar and begs the director for orders. Down in a field of grave markers, Young-soo reports to Aleph that Penora is on the move again. Watching the chaos unfold, Young-soo feels a wave of helplessness, admitting there's nothing he can do. Boom. A nearby turret fires, breaking his momentary despair. A volley of projectiles rains down from the sky, blanketing the Gurita horde. The projectiles explode into a thick smoke screen, completely obscuring the battlefield. Emerging from the smoke, armored vehicles and bikes race to safety as Aleph orders Young-soo to retreat to the central gate. Amidst the chaos of battle, the blue-skinned woman in red armor vows to Young-soo, "We'll hold the line!" Young-soo immediately questions the strategy, prompting the woman to ask if he has a problem with it. He quickly lays out a better plan, arguing that a wide perimeter is suicide. They must concentrate their forces and break through at Penora's position. Understanding dawns on the blue-skinned woman as she visualizes Young-soo's strategy. Narrow the enemy's formation and hit them with a focused assault. From a high wall, a commander orders his troops to support the gate so the main force can shatter the enemy lines. Aboard her vehicle, the blue-skinned woman smirks with confidence, stating she fully approves of this new operation. Thud! Young-soo plants a red flag firmly in the ground, ready to lead the charge. A blue-skinned commander instructs a white-haired subordinate to give Young-soo the commander's insignia and let him focus on his new role. Clenching the flagpole, Young-soo listens as the subordinate compares their current predicament to the historic Battle of Gaugamela. The subordinate continues briefing Young-soo on his critical role in the coming battle. His new mission is finally revealed. In this battle, Young-soo is to be their Alexander. The white-haired aide with striking red eyes confirms the historical combat reference. She explains from a castle wall that their situation mirrors the famous battle between Darius and Alexander. A tactical display reveals the enemy's weakness. Their forces are spread unevenly, creating vulnerable gaps in their lines. The simple map continues to illustrate the enemy's flawed defensive formation. The strategy is set. They must punch through the weak points to trigger a total collapse of the enemy's army. The red-eyed aide looks at Young-soo with intensity, repeating his vital new call sign. Your role is Alexander. Vroom. With his new orders, Young-soo guns his engine and speeds into the fray, leading the charge against monstrous alien beasts. A close-up reveals the terrifying, insectoid face of one of the creatures on the battlefield. A red-caped, blue-skinned warrior roars, "Dong Young-soo, I'll handle that bastard," and peels off to engage a beast. Vroom! He swerves his bike, putting himself on a collision course with the massive creature. With a sharp click, he ignites a cylindrical device, preparing to make his move. In a daring pass, he slams the burning explosive directly into the monster's flank. Boom! The device detonates in a blast of violent purple energy, ripping a hole in the creature's side. Leaving the mortally wounded beast behind, the warrior speeds on to rejoin the main assault. Young-soo takes command, waving his flag and shouting for the cavalry to follow him to the left. He announces their primary objective, capture Penora, who is guarded by two giant insectoid creatures in the center. Pew pew! The cavalry opens fire, unleashing a storm of red laser blasts as they charge across the battlefield. Through his helmet, Young-Soo's eyes narrow with fierce determination as he leads the attack. Thwack! A soldier lands a perfect shot, striking one of the giant creatures square in its glowing red eyes. Suddenly, a warning rings out. There are traitors. Watch out for gunfire. Just as the warning is issued, the red-caped warrior's bike is hit, sending him tumbling to the ground. Barta, Young-Soo yells, telling his fallen comrade he's gonna board the giant garita and capture Penora himself. Young-Soo relays new orders to Barta, telling him to break through the center and strike the left flank as Barta signals his understanding. VROOOM. Young-Soo pushes his bike to its limit, racing straight toward the colossal leg of the garita. He launches himself from the speeding bike, using the momentum to leap onto the creature's massive form. Now aboard the beast, he instantly eliminates a guard with a swift slice from his purple energy blade. As he stands over his foe, a mysterious voice echoes in his mind. To become light, first listen. He dodges a swing from another enemy, the voice continuing. After action, heaven will unfold. Zap! An electric shock courses through his body as an enemy weapon strikes him, making him cry out in pain. He fires back, while the first part of the cryptic message, to become light, repeats in his head. Facing another opponent, the words, first listen, echo once more. He braces for impact, blocking a heavy mace as the final phrase rings out, after action, heaven will unfold. Crackle! The electrified mace smashes against his helmet, sending another powerful jolt through him. He twists his body, narrowly dodging another deadly swing from his relentless attacker. The shock reveals his true face under the helmet. It's the section chief from the flashback, wondering if the electricity is causing him to hallucinate. Clutching his helmet, his vision begins to blur from the repeated electric shocks. In a hazy vision, he sees a woman named Jocelyn repeating the same mysterious phrase. His eyes widen in disbelief as he recognizes the woman from his past, calling out her name in shock. Snapping back to reality, the section chief's eyes glint with a newfound, steely resolve. A man in a yellow polo shirt grabs the armored section chief, anxiously asking if he's okay. The section chief recognizes his fallen comrade, whispering in disbelief, "Dean, were you alive?" Dean's face twists in a furious scream as he shouts out a foreign command. But it's Barta who snaps him out of it, telling him to get his head together and focus on Penora. Young-Soo stands up, his mind clearing as he asks where their target, Penora, has gone. Barta, pulling on a bundle of pink wires from the creature, reports Penora has left and suggests they follow through the canyon. He then kneels, placing his hands on his head, prompting Young-Soo to ask what he's doing, as Barta declares, mental synchronization. Young-Soo is skeptical, asking if that's the same brainwashing technique used on them, and questions why he'd use it on a garita. Barta reveals the secret. Penora controlled the garita by synchronizing with them first. As if on cue, the giant insectoid garita creatures stir in the mist, their massive forms looming over the battlefield. The dust settles over the flower-strewn battlefield, the ruins of a fortress visible in the distance. Young-Soo connects the dots, asking if mental synchronization is why he saw his fallen Earth comrades, and Barta confirms it's a symptom. A horrifying thought crosses Young-Soo's mind as he thinks, "Don't tell me." In a flashback, he recalls the white-haired woman, wondering if the nanobots she injected are causing this. Barta confirms his suspicion, explaining that Boomians also use nanobots to utilize pheromones. Young-Soo is confused, asking how he knows this since it's information supposedly known only to priests. Barta credits a man named Paraka, praising him for not concealing information like the old guard. Young-Soo then asks about Barta's black hair, noting that he'd heard those with abilities have white hair. Barta simply replies, "Really?" as he looks back at the strange organic wiring. In a vision, the white-haired woman appears, impressed as she tells him his mental strength is amazing. Massive lizard-like creature scurries across the battlefield before coming to a stop between two pillars. Young-Soo is now face-to-face with Penora, accusing her of playing games, while she notes his preference for simple solutions. She asks him about the comrades he saw, but just as she does, he's violently knocked off his feet. Penora explains that mental synchronization doesn't read his mind, it makes him reveal his own heart. Trapped in the illusion, Young-Soo screams that Penora is surrounded, his voice echoing in a dark void. The illusion solidifies, and he finds himself on the ground, surrounded by his former human squad mates aiming their rifles at him. Penora's voice tempts him, offering a happy life, seeing his beloved friends and family. But Young-soo sees through the lie, his eyes wide with fury, as he screams, "This is all fake!" Penora calmly argues that emotions are all in the heart, so if his heart is happy, reality doesn't matter. She presents him with a blue-skinned man, calling him a subordinate, as Young-soo holds him hostage with a blade. Penora gives him a cold choice. "I don't care if you kill them all," as Young-soo brutally stabs his captive. He shoves the body aside, the illusion of his old life shattering around him. With a red glow in his eyes, he wipes his visor and declares, menacingly, "From now on, it's work hours. You bastards." He snaps a new energy pack into his rifle, ready to fight his way out of this mental prison. Pew! He immediately opens fire, taking down one of the illusory soldiers. He continues his assault, firing relentlessly into the phantom ranks. A massive alien claw suddenly emerges from the darkness. A swift and deadly attack. Smash! The claw slams down, pulverizing a pillar right where Young-soo was standing. Pew, pew. He returns fire from cover, taking down another soldier, this one with gray hair. He guns down one more phantom enemy, purple blood splattering as the body falls. The bullets continue to fly, ricocheting off the giant creature Penora is perched on. He takes cover as a pillar next to him explodes from the creature's attack. Realizing his position is compromised, he notes that his cover is disappearing and he needs to move up. The shattered remains of the pillar crumble to the ground in a cloud of dust. A woman from his old squad is hit by a splash of purple energy. He takes down another enemy, this one a man with glasses, in a hail of gunfire. Rolling on the ground, he keeps firing, determined to end this nightmare. He unloads his clip into the massive creature's head, trying to take down the source. The beast's massive claw crashes down, shaking the ground around him. He sprints across the creature's back, dodging its defenses as he pushes forward. Pow! A massive blow sends a shockwave of purple energy through a creature's jaw. Bam! Another strike connects, splintering the monster's rocky hide with overwhelming force. The creature's arm shatters completely, dissolving into dust and leaking purple fluid. A blue-skinned woman with long white hair watches with sorrow, lamenting that she didn't want to kill him like this. In her vision, an armored soldier scales a fleshy wall, while another man in a yellow shirt aims a weapon, both on high alert. Wham! In a brutal twist, the soldier turns and impales the man with a hooked weapon. He callously uses the man as a human shield while firing a pistol at an unseen target. The shot rips through the man's back. A perfect example, a friendly fire not being very friendly. A blue-skinned woman in red and white armor gasps in shock as the purple energy blasts pierce her body. But it was all just a hallucination. The white-helmeted soldier stands over the captive blue-skinned woman, his gun at the ready. A soldier with pink headphones explains over comms that the hallucinatory effects of the pheromones will fade soon. The soldier holding the gun tells the captive not to worry and to just finish the job. The captive woman closes her eyes, remarking that he is surprisingly and truly generous. The soldier grimly notes that while he might spare her, her fellow Boomians certainly won't. Knowing her fate is sealed, the soldier with the headphones puts a gun to her own head and asks him to kill her himself. He solemnly orders the captive to look away as he prepares to carry out the grim task. Meanwhile, on the actual battlefield, Langet unleashes a devastating blast that vaporizes Agurita's head. A fellow blue-skinned soldier congratulates Langet, declaring that this is the end. But Langet insists it's not over, frantically trying to reach Dong Young-soo on her comms. A voice finally comes through, it's Aleph, reporting that he's found Young-soo in the canyon, and they are returning. Langet anxiously asks about Young-soo's condition, and he replies over the comms that he has no serious injuries. Reporting from the field with Aleph, Young-soo announces he killed the enemy commander, Penora, and the situation is over. The blue-skinned soldier beside Langet stares in disbelief, unable to process the news. Wah! The blue-skinned troops erupt in a massive cheer, celebrating their victory and shouting that Penora is dead. The soldier who fought alongside Aleph stands before them as they chant, "The hero has returned!"